All right, good morning and welcome to the Society for Creative Anachronism, Inc. Quarterly Board of Directors meeting. We're very glad to have you all here with us observing, and we hope that this will be educational and enlightening for everybody in attendance. So we're going to start by introducing ourselves, and then we'll go forward and open the meeting and proceed with business. I am Dale Fong Frederick. I am the current chair of the Board of Directors. I am from the East Kingdom, where I am a knight and known as Sir Jabril Al-Nikel.
Hello, my name is Aaron Rusty Lloyd, also known as Aaron Polydenies of Buckminster. I am from the Middle Kingdom, and I am a knight and a pelican.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Stringer, the Society Exchequer. I live in Glenavon, and I'm a pelican. Go Rams.
Good morning, everyone. Bridget Costello, Communications. I'm Anders Hornay from the Kingdom of Lockhart, and I am a laurel and a pelican.
I'm Carolyn Richardson. I'm the corporate treasurer, and I am also a laurel and a pelican. I live in Caid.
Darcy?
You're muted, Darcy.
Is she frozen?
There, now I'm not. I'm sorry, I didn't realize Dale wasn't here. I'm Darcy O'Neill, otherwise known as Riordan McGregor. I am a pelican. I also live in Caid. We used to say "Go Rams" and take the Raiders with you, and that. But in any case, it is my honor and pleasure to be the editor of Tournaments Illuminated.
My name is Evan Kurtzman. I'm legal counsel for the SCA. In the SCA, I live in Caid, and I'm known as Brock of Alderden, and I'm a Viscount, Pelican, and Laurel.
I'm Ellen Rawson, and despite the accent, I live in the Kingdom of Truckenvold, in the Principality of Insula Draconis. Good evening. It is evening for me. I am the editor of The Complete Anachronist. I am Aria of Lindisfarne in the SCA, and I am a pelican.
Good afternoon. I am Jennifer Smith. In the SCA, I'm known as Emma de Featherston. I'm a pelican. I am the Society Herald. I live in the Kingdom of Onstior in the Principality of Ventame.
Hi, everyone. I am John Fulton. I am the president of SCA. In the Society, I am John the Bear Killer. I'm a knight and a pelican. And I hail from the Kingdom of Glenavon. Go friggin' Rams.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie Gilroy. I'm the social media officer and I'm from Onsteora. I don't have peerage, I'm just a lady. Yeah, I'm from Onsteora, hook 'em.
Hook 'em horns, woo.
Hi everyone, I am KT Shepard. I go by Shep. I am from Meridies. I am the director for Seat F, the ombudsman for Onsteora, Ontier, Traumaris, and Glenavon. Like I said, I'm from Meridies, Ulrich von Brandenburg. That's me.
Hi, I'm Leslie Luther Fulton. I'm the executive assistant for the board. In the SCA, I'm Jane Fallon of Inglewood from Glenavon. Go Rams.
Hi, I'm Liz Schreier. I'm the Society Seneschal. In the SCA, I'm known as Elisette Inning Dirmada. I live in the Kingdom of Callantyr, and I am a pelican.
Hey, good morning from California. My name is Louise Ducre, and I am the VP for Corporate Operations. And that's it. That's the whole story.
Good morning. My name is Mark Falcon. I am the director-elect. In the SCA, I am Martin Lochner from the Kingdom of Traumaris, a knight and a pelican.
Hey everyone, my name is Natalie Duggerstrom and I am a beast from the East. I live up in Maine in the East Kingdom.
In society, I'm known as Saruka Bint Lazari, and on the board, I am the ombudsman for Midrealm, Atlantia, Meridies, and the Marshall communities. Thank you.
I am Pug Vayner. I'm living in Austin, Texas, director, current vice chair. In the society, I live in the Kingdom of Onsteora. I'm a member of the Order of the Pelican, Laurel, and Defense.
Hey, I'm the Society Marshal, Ray Dubose. In the SCA, I'm known as Ray de Rebemont. I'm a Knight and a Pelican. Oh, and I live in Onsteora.
Hey guys, I'm Ross Regner. I go by Bart. I am a director where I'm ombudsman for ANS, Artemisia, Atenvelt, Publications, and Census. Oh, and recruiting. And I'm from Meridies. I'm a count there. And yeah, my wife is in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Send help.
My name is Sam Davis. I live just north of Atlanta in Georgia, and I'm the IT manager for the SCA. Within the SCA, I'm Duke Thomas Blackmore. Live in the Shire of Owl's Nest in Meridies. I am a Duke, a Knight, a Pelican, and a Laurel.
Hi, I'm Sarah Noble McGee. I'm your Society Minister for Arts and Sciences. I live in the Kingdom of Atlantia in North Carolina, where I'm a Laurel, and I'm in the SCA. I'm known as Magnifica Hildegard Bergering.
Hello, I am Stacy Hall. In the society, I am known as Gwendolyn Nahalleran. I live in Meridies. I am a Pelican, and I am the Emergency Replacement Deputy to the Society Seneschal. We all hope Liz is very happy and well.
All right. So for those of you who have been here before and have a keen eye, you will notice that there are 2 people who are stalwarts here and are missing today. That is one of our directors, Jennifer Krochmal, and our DEI officer, Jessica Van Hattem. Both of them are a little under the weather and cannot be here with us today, and we are going to do our best to carry on without them. So that being said, let the games and the tears begin. I will entertain a motion to open this meeting. Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we open this July 24th quarterly meeting of the SCA Board of Directors, accept the agenda as presented, and take agenda items out of order as necessary.
Is there a second? Second, Director Lloyd. Right, by consensus, we will open up the meeting and proceed with the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. So turning first to April 24th, 2022, the quarterly meeting minutes. Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes for the June 14th conference call, the April 24th quarterly meeting minutes, the July 5th special board meeting, and the July 12th special board meeting as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded by Director Shepherd. Are there any amendments or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. The motion carries unanimously. All right, we're going to turn to item 3 on the agenda, recurring business, and we will start with section A, status changes. Vice President Schreier.
Status changes that require board action. I regretfully request that the board dissolve some groups. The first one is from Ontario, the Shire of, I'm going to blow this name, Drumdonan, Doineann, which is the area around Port Angeles, Washington. Per the Kingdom Seneschal, that group has struggled for a while before the pandemic, and when the Seneschal was holding Zoom meetings and such, nobody else showed up. So there doesn't seem to be interest in maintaining or revitalizing the group, and seems to have been limited to just one person interested there for a few years now. So I would request that the board vote to dissolve the group.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we regretfully accept the dissolution of the Shire of Drumdoineann located within the Port Angeles, Washington area.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Bainter. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. With regret, the Shire of Durham Donegan in Antier, the Kingdom of Antier, has been dissolved. Next.
Okay, in Meridias, we have the Shire of Talmere, which is around Carrollton, Georgia. Kingdom Seneschal tells me that the group's numbers have dropped below a sustainable level to maintain officers, and the remaining members who have served in office for years are tired, and the group itself has requested dissolution. So I would ask that the board vote to approve that.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the dissolution of that shire.
Motion by Director Lloyd. Is there a second? Second by Director Shepherd. Any discussion? Please raise your hands if you're in favor of dissolution. Motion carries unanimously. Vice President Schreier, can continue.
Okay, last one. This is from Artemisia, the Shire of Crystal Crags, which is Kalispell, Montana. The group's been dormant for several years. The Kingdom Seneschal says there are 9 paid members in the area. She sent a polling to those 9 members about the future of the Shire. She only got one poll back, and that was with a vote to dissolve the Shire. So apparently there is not interest there in keeping a group going, and I request that the board vote to dissolve this group.
Mr. Chairman. Oh,
sorry. Director Dagerstrom, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I move to dissolve the group of Crystal Crag as proposed by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Seconded by Director Bainter. All those in, sorry, is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? Director Lloyd, I didn't see a response from you on this.
Right. A chat message came up, but I was confused for a second. I voted in favor of the motion.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the officers and the members of those groups that were dissolved for their efforts and hard work at maintaining the SCA presence in their region. And it is with regret that we dissolve, but hopefully at some point you will be able to return to active status and reform, and the kingdoms and the society stands ready to help. All right, item C on the quarterly meeting schedule. Officer Ducre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have tentative meeting dates for the next calendar year that have been provided on the agenda. January 22nd, April 23rd, July 23rd, and October 22nd, 2023 for the board meetings. So I would ask that those are either discussed or confirmed.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments with regard to the schedule? All right, seeing none, the board approves by consensus.
And then I would ask all corporate officers, our invited guests. I don't know if that needs a.
But that's approved by consensus of the board.
Excellent, thank you. And lastly, for the conference call scheduled for the next quarter, we have August 29th and September 26th of this year.
Thank you. Any discussion or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, that's approved by consensus. And I do just want to go back with regard to the virtual meeting and invited guests. All corporate and society officers are, of course, welcome with the gratitude of the board. Thank you, President Fulton. Okay, turning next to item D, Vice President Ducre.
Yes, all bank account authorizations that are that were available to be processed have currently been processed. And thank you to Bonnie for continually. I mean, it's thank you so much. So they have all been processed.
Thank you. Executive Assistant Luther Fulton, any issues with regard to warrants?
No, I only have one request for warrant. That's from the president for Mr. Kurtzman as in-house counsel, and that will go out after this meeting.
Thank you. Director, turning next to ongoing projects, Director Regner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, recruiting is going pretty well. We've had a recent surge of nominations. We've also done a few outreach things. Thanks to Bridget and Katie and Leslie for helping get that organized and done. That's been really good. I've had several conversations with folks considering accepting nominations. I would encourage everybody listening and everybody who is participating in this meeting, if you know somebody that would be good, not just now, but at some point on the board, please nominate. Please, please, please nominate. Just being nominated and allowing your resume to be on that list of people willing to interview for the position in and of itself is a service to the society. And so I just highly recommend that everybody do that. Thanks to everyone who are helping with the recruitment efforts.
Thank you, Director Regner. Turning back to Executive Assistant Luther Fulton for board representation.
I just would like to, as Mr. Regner did, thank Bridget, Catherine, Katie, and Jessica for running the Talking Board interview series. And then I would like to note that there will be a town hall meeting at Pensacola for those attending on Tuesday, August the 9th. I believe that's at 10 a.m. their time. And corporate officers and society officers are also welcome to come and sit in on that panel if they are there and so choose to do so.
Thank you very much. And I would just like to take a moment to thank you, Ms. Luther Fulton, for always keeping the board on track and organized, and particularly for helping me not put my foot in my mouth all the time. Thank you. All right, turning next to old business, Vice President Schreier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the past quarter, excuse me, I've granted a number of variances for various reasons to kingdoms for events and for variances from other things. So I'll start going down the list. First one is from Outlands. I granted a variance to allow their crown tournament to occur as scheduled, despite the fact that they didn't manage to get a full announcement in the Kingdom newsletter. They did publicize it otherwise. They didn't get it into the newsletter. So I would ask the board to uphold that.
Thank you. Is there a motion by any director? Director Lloyd, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
I was speaking, I apologize. Mr. Chairman, I motion that we accept the variances as presented by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Director Regner? Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously. Before you continue, Vice President Schreier, I just want to say for the people who are watching, we do try to say this at the beginning of every meeting, and I forgot. You may see that there's certain topics that we go through where there's not a lot of discussion. The directors are given reports by the officers, society and corporate officers, well in advance of the meeting, and we have quite some time to go through them and to consider what's being presented to us. So when we get to the meeting by Sunday, we don't always have questions. We may have already gone through the report and found out what we needed to know. So thank you, and let us continue, Vice President Schreier.
Thank you. Next one is from Ethelmark. Variance granted for them to hold their Kingdom Curia as specified in Kingdom Law at Ethelmark War Practice, despite not having published an announcement of the Curia. The event was in, but not the Curia, as required by Kingdom Law. We've had talks about how we all have to learn to event again. I granted that variance, and I would ask that the board uphold it.
Director Shepherd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the variance granted to the Kingdom of Ethelmark to hold its Curia as requested by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Degerstrom. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Sorry, Director Lloyd, I didn't register a vote from you. Welcome back to the board.
Dang it.
All right, motion carries unanimously. All right, next on the list.
Okay, from Kaid, with the agreement from the Vice President of Corporate Operations, Louise, granted a variance for the Barony of Leondemere to send a one-time special edition of their newsletter to all the paid members residing in the Barony's zip code. There were some special circumstances around that. I would ask the board to uphold that.
Director Bainter.
I move that we uphold the variance granted by the Society Seneschal as presented.
Is there a seconded, Director Lloyd? Any discussion? Right, seeing none, please signify by raising your hands if you are in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Next.
Okay, from Atlantia, I granted a variance to Atlantia Kingdom Law. Their law is very specific about terms for barons and baronesses. The variance allows the Baron and Baroness of Bright Hills to extend their term by 4 months without having to poll for a second term as normally specified in law. They don't want a full second term, but their predecessors resigned early and they stepped up at a time inconvenient for the barony, so they want to get it back on schedule. I'd ask the board to uphold.
Director Degerstrom.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the variance bestowed upon Atlantia to extend one of their baronies' baronial seat's second term by 4 months, granted by Liz on 5/17/2022.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Lloyd. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. All right, motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
I just would like to extend the board's thanks to the Baron and Baroness for extending that courtesy to their successors.
Okay, moving along, Outlands, they had to change the site for Grand Outlandish and their baronial investiture due to fire considerations. I would ask the board to uphold that last-minute site change.
Is there a motion by any director?
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the variance to the Kingdom of Outlands as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Bainter. All those in favor, please signify by, I'm sorry, discussion. All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, next is the East. I granted a variance to allow a one-time change to several bid deadlines for Kingdom events that they have specified exact dates they need to receive in Kingdom law. That was requested because of the recent shutdown of the Kingdom for several weeks due to Omicron. It threw things off schedule. I'd ask the board to grant that variance.
Thank you. Director Bainter?
Director, I request that we uphold the variance granted to the East for event deadlines as presented by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Seconded by Director Degerstrom. Any discussion? Okay, please signify by raising your hands if you are in favor. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, from Ethelmark, in April, the board approved a new policy that said that certain officers couldn't be event stewards without removing themselves from any oversight. The Barony of Theft Score had an event that had been planned prior to that, which would violate the policy because the local exchequer is the site owner and also part of the site, the financial committee that approved the budget. Because that policy wasn't passed till late April, they weren't able to pivot on that, and I feel that's within the time change that we normally allow for new policies. So I granted that variance, and I would ask the board to uphold it.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we grant the variance as presented by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Director Painter. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, Outlands, once again, their Queen's Prize and Clanmore event that was scheduled for June 10th through 12th had to change sites on short notice because of the site being closed due to wildfires. I would ask the board to uphold that.
Okay, I would entertain a motion from any director. Director Shepherd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the variance granted by the Society Seneschal for the Kingdom of the Outlands to move their site for the Queen's Prize and Clan War event as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Regner. Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Carries unanimously.
Okay, next is Callantyre. There was a variance granted. They had a number of Kingdom law changes. They held an online law court, and they did not, because they had not held virtual courts during the pandemic, they did not realize that that had to be announced in the Kingdom newsletter. So they were unaware of that. They did publicize the law court, and they did make it available later. I granted a variance to make the court legal for them. I would ask the board to uphold that.
Is there a motion from any director? Director Shepherd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the variance granted to the Kingdom of Callantyre in regards to their law court as presented by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Lloyd. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Almost done. Two more. The East, this is similar to the one from Ethelmark. I granted a one-time variance on that policy about site owners being event stewards because, again, they did not have time to pivot once that policy was passed. They have a circumstance where a close upcoming event was going to be autocrated by the person who owned the site. I would ask that the board uphold that because of the short time frame.
Is there Director Bainter?
Director, I recommend we uphold the variance as granted to the Kingdom of the East by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Lloyd. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Last one, from Meridiace. I granted a one-time variance to their Kingdom law. Their Kingdom law specifies crown tourney must be held on the second weekend of October. The incoming crown is from Caid originally, really wanted to attend Great Western War. This would be an argument for kingdoms to consider having a little flexibility in their laws on dates, but they don't. So I granted a variance for it. I would ask the board to uphold that.
Director Degerstrom.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the variance granted to Meridiace on 615 by the Society Seneschal.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, Director Painter. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Thank you. All right, turning. I'm sorry, just that was the last one, right? Okay, that's what I thought. Turning next to new business, there is a resolution which I have presented. I apologize, just need to log back in, which I have presented to the board regarding oral traditions. And I would like to move to approve the resolution as presented and open discussion. So I am so moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Director Regner. I open the floor to discussion.
Mr. Chair, is there a template for this protocol, or I would imagine you would be receiving these protocols for the cultures as they are created?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The idea is that the officers will create their own protocols.
Yes, I was just wondering if there was a template for them to do that, or should they just present it to you?
No, they're going to research it in each individual area and develop it as they see fit. I didn't want to have a resolution that's so specific. I do have the hands that are raised noted. I did not want to micromanage what protocols were necessary because I imagine it may be different in each of the different areas of specialty in the society. I have Director Regner and President Fulton on the list. Director Regner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like the resolution as presented. I especially like the fact that it remains high tier in its approach. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the result of this passing would be that our officers would be directed to look into updating their policies with this in mind, but that it is not a direct policy in and of itself. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so because of that, it should be considered a direction by us if we adopt this to look into these things. It's not necessarily a command per se where they have to change policies and have far-reaching consequences. It's just in an effort to serve inclusion and diversity and equity, we think that this is a good way for our officers to begin looking forward, right?
That's correct. So before I recognize you, President Fulton, I just want to clarify for the people who are watching. I introduced a resolution which reads as follows: whereas some historical cultures are based on oral traditions, and whereas some historical cultures lost historical documentation due to environmental and human intervention, and whereas many historical cultures existed outside of the European sphere, the Board of Directors does hereby direct all officers whose area of influence would be naturally affected by this directive to develop a protocol for the full recognition and approval of aspects of cultures not based wholly on written documentation, but sufficiently shown to be in existence during the period covered under the SCA guidelines. President Fulton.
I just thought that the actual resolution should be read and explained. Thank you very much, Chairman. Appreciate it.
Apologies. This is the first time I'm presenting a resolution. Are there any comments or questions from the officers or directors? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. The chair exercises his right to vote and votes in favor. Motion carries unanimously. And my thanks to you, Director Regner, for helping me to explain the point of this resolution. Next on the agenda is the SCA Archives update by President Fulton.
Thank you very much. So for those who have been attending these meetings for the last few times, the Society owns an archives. It is a body of material that has been collected for decades. It moved around 2020 to a C.T. Alderson's home in California, in Caid. He has held on to it. His family has been very supportive and very helpful in keeping track of it. It is a large amount of material going back probably first or second year of the SCA and includes a myriad of material. CT is ready to have this office passed on to another society archivist. We put the message out, and I'm going to put it out again. The Office of Archivist is being publicized. If you are interested, if you have questions, please respond to the announcement itself. But we have reached a time after a long number of years that we have to move the archives. That will mean we will need to pull out material that should be shredded, business documents from 40, 50 years ago that are no longer applicable, and other such material that is just simply not conditioned to be able to survive such a move. And then we will need to separate it into material that can go to the new archivist, and we're going to pare that down to things that have not been we've not been able to scan or get digitized, and it is a good amount of material. COVID put that project on the back burner. That was the original plan. But we're going to need to make sure we have the material separated so that we know what we want to keep. We will offer some material to Riverside, California College there that does have an SCA collection, but they are very particular on what they want. We will pull out material like extra newsletters and things that will go to Louise and Natalia at the office that can be resold. And there will be some material that we probably should not hang on to. A lot of written material, a lot of newsletters that were probably considered a bit naughty then and are something we really can't keep as an archive. But this is going to take people going in, putting their hands on it, pulling it out. It's already in boxes, storing those safely with tape, putting them on at least 3 different pallets, shipping something to the new archivist location to be stored off-site for them to handle and go through themselves. Material that will go to the office that can be used, that we can offer to people, maybe offer to kingdoms for no charge. Again, we don't, some of this material is so old and is such quantity that we don't have a complete index of all of it. And then what we can basically shred and get rid of because it cannot be traveled or is no longer legally useful or even has been looked at for 40 or 50 years. But this is going to take a team. We have a volunteer, 3 volunteers for that so far. Myself, the EA, and Laura Pate, who's my deputy, need to go to CT's place, help get it ready, get it palletized, and get it shipped. It is right now scheduled for right before the middle of October, which is right after, I believe, the Great Western War. So Caid will be going to that, and we'll be asking for volunteers going to Ross Thompson, the Kingdom Seneschal, and anybody else in Caid who wants to spend a day or two helping us tote stuff and look at it. And it will bring back memories, and some of it will actually explain what mimeographing was in the Dark Ages. But this has to be done. CT has held it, and it's not charged us for storage forever, and we need to make some decisions. And it has to be now, and it has to be, thankfully, after this summer's heat, which is what the original date was. We'll be asking for volunteers. I've already got one person coming in from the other side of the country who works for a company located in Caid will give up his time and let his company fly him in, and he will help. We will get volunteers, but we will need money to do that. Carolyn, I sent you the breakdown of costs. Did it make sense? Was that sufficient?
Yeah, John, I think that's probably fine. We do have a contingency budget that should cover that already built into the budget, just so the directors know, because I forgot to mention that when we discussed this yesterday.
I will forever be in your debt. Thank you, Carolyn. But that was it. The budget we have, which includes buying pallets, extra tape, wrapping, shipping it on pallets to different places, getting the bulk of the corporate people there for 3 nights, 4 days to work with any volunteers to try to get this done and finally settled and passed off from CT at $5,235. That covers, as far as we can tell, everything. We will work to get some of the cost as negligible as possible, but we've had 20 years of this where it really basically hasn't cost the corporation anything, and some of this material is extremely valuable. At some point, I'm sure the archives will go fully digital, because basically most of our printed material is just digitized anyway. It has been for about 10 years, a number of years. We've gone to that. But we do have, it is now time to pay the piper on what to do with this material. And it's, Natalie has been there. She has a video that she put out. It is very interesting, but we can no longer keep it where it is and keep it in the catch-all for everything in the SCA. So I would ask the board to approve this money to be spent. We will work with Carolyn to see it is done as responsibly as possible and cover any, I know I plan to cover some of the expenses on my own, because I love this stuff and I want to see it handled properly. But we would like approval to do this and finally set a date in which we will not be parboiled to get this, and finally say thank you to CT for all of this.
President Fulton, are you asking for a motion to be made today to approve something specific?
Well, if we plan to do it starting on the 11th, I believe, of October, we will need to have this approved now so that we can go ahead and start confirming volunteers and airfare and where we're going to stay and all of that, and start getting the materials in line to be delivered to do the job.
Okay. Director Degerstrom?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the proposed budget that we have before us to take care of the necessary needs to provide for the archives move as presented by President Fulton.
Seconded by Director Lloyd. Any discussion?
One more thing, Director Dale. If by chance we do not have a new archivist chosen, we have a secondary location that will store it for free for us for a period of time of just the archive material that we are going to keep. So on the off chance we don't have an archivist, we have contingency plans that'll make it all safe as possible until we do arrive at a new archivist to begin the process of pouring through this and deciding what to do with the complete passed on collection. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion carries unanimously. The chair recognizes himself for one question. Director Fulton, if people want to volunteer, do you have an idea of what you would need volunteers for and how those volunteers can reach you to volunteer?
I will be reaching out within the next week or so, talking to the Kingdom Seneschal of Caid about how we get the information out of exactly what we're going to need, what kind of manpower, and it will be basically sorting, indexing, boxing, and then palletizing over a 3-day period, 3.5-day period. But I will get with Ross because there may be people willing to come in from other areas. I know of one that will be in there, but yeah, we'll get all of that settled within the next couple of weeks. Usually we will probably get everything as finalized as possible, have everything as finalized as possible right after PENZIC, because so much is involved right now with PENZIC starting in a few days. But yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything for Director Regner?
Yes, President Fulton, what is CT's full name? Do we know, or does he have a SCA name that we know?
His
I would
C
love.
stands for Charles, and his SCA name is Aldred, and I don't remember the rest of it, unfortunately.
Aldred Lexon von Froheim.
He told me to call him CT, and I was afraid not to call him anything but CT.
Fair enough, fair enough. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I would like today to ask the directors to join me in resolving to express our deep appreciation and gratitude for decades of service. And it sounds like free storage, and that's a great service to the society. So, so moved.
Second.
Second, motion by Director Regner, seconded by Director Lloyd. Any discussion? By consensus, the board so moves.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And if there's nothing else with regard to the archives, we will now move on to officers' reports. President Fulton.
Mr. President, you are muted.
Delicious suffering.
For those who may not know, not catching your mute being on is one of the worst unforgivable sins in what we do. There are drinks involved. Ultimately, if we ever can get to meet each other in friggin' person. Thank you. Greetings to the board. This is my July 2022 quarterly report from the President's office. My requested board actions was tied to the archivist issue, and that has already been settled. I have no policy interpretations. I have no new policies. I rarely make policies. Commendations, and I will at some point later have a huge commendation for CT. My commendations is I would like to commend all the exchequers across the known world for their work. The Honorable Lady Petra Hall from the Kingdom of Eldamere, their Kingdom Exchequer, is especially noteworthy of thanks by my office. Petra has handled multiple issues dealing with banking questions and continues to help SCA Inc. and the SCA participants and groups in Canada identify and address issues that deal with financial responsibility. Petra has been wonderful in working with some bank questions that have come up recently, and she is still on this issue and still working it out for us. I would also like to take time to thank Laura Pate, who is my Special Projects Deputy, for her work on the archives and a few other issues. My publishable summary: SCA Kingdoms and their groups are continuing to hold in-person events while making continuing efforts to keep everyone safe due to the ever-present COVID threat. Inter-Kingdom events are ongoing. I will submit this report to the board on July 1st, 2022, while at the same time Ontario West is beginning. Gulf Wars was a success a few months ago, and Lily's War ended on June 26, 2022, and was another good success. And while this has been going on, PENZIC 49 will begin soon on July 29th of this month. It has been a long 2 years, but as we toil through the hot, hellish summer months, it is with anticipation that we all get ready for the increase in the wide variety of in-person events that the fall of 2022 will bring. Now would be a good time as any to remind everyone that the cost of event attendance for those who are not members of the SCA may be eased by purchasing a paid membership. In addition to saving a bit of money on attendance fees, SCA membership also provides the benefit of being able to be an officer in the society, as well as helping out our not-for-profit costs for insurance, office and business expenses, and other costs associated with keeping the SCA going as a legal entity. The price of membership, including family memberships, has not risen in a good many years, and it is certainly, in my opinion, a very good bargain. Please consider becoming a member today. Also, if you have someone who, for whatever reason, cannot get an SCA membership right now, we do have a program that they can get one through the corporation itself. My email is president@sca.org. If you have somebody or you would like to maybe get a membership and need some help with that, contact me. I'll tell you how to do that. The SCA is in the process of replacing our old and end-of-life software used for membership. The SCA Marketplace and event registration, this is all being replaced. The new software is being provided by Neon One, and I'm sure Louise will bring this up. The not-for-profit CRM is in the process of installation and testing with a planned final implementation date of, I believe, sometime in October 2022. Again, Louise is the pro on this. This will provide a substantial saving in cost, which should be realized before the end of 2022, as well as a planned upgrade in availability and reliability for all users. An announcement will be coming on the implementation, I'm sure, soon. Again, all of our meetings, our board meetings are online on GoToWebinar. Please check our website for information about future board meetings. The SCA Inc. continues to be healthy, though we are being as careful as possible with our budgeting and spending. As I mentioned above, the new member software should bring immediate savings, as well as the finished move from the office in Milpitas to San Jose. And Mr. Chairman, that is my report for this quarter from the President's office. Thank you.
Thank you. And by consensus, the board accepts your report as presented. Turning next to Officer Davis for the IT report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unto the esteemed directors of the Society for Creative Anachronism, the Manager of Information Technology sends greetings. Herein follows the second quarter 2022 board report to the Board of Directors regarding the activities of the Department of Information Technology for the board's July 24th, 2022 meeting. Requested board actions. Please consider and appoint the new Society Web Minister, Nicholas Milano. This post has been vacant since AON's resignation, and the importance of this position deserves attention of dedicated personnel. Policy interpretations, none. New policies, none. Commendations. First, David Dubry for his continued efforts to maintain our IT infrastructure and his patience with my learning curve. Louise Ducray for her assistance in getting me up to speed, her patience and dogged determination in navigating the current CRM issues, and her efforts in the CRM replacement search. Number 3, Nicholas Milano for being willing to step in and help me with issues that have arisen within the purview of the web minister position. Number 4, Aaron Rusty Laurie for his years of service and his excellent mentorship as I stepped into the large shoes he left behind. Number 5, Hunter Idson, who is willing to step in and help me troubleshoot some of the more confusing issues we've had with the server. His service is all the more appreciated since he has never been active in the SCA. He is a friend who is willing to help in a time-critical situation. General status report. Things in IT are going well. I am beginning to feel settled into my new position. We have corrected several email issues related to traditional emails and our email lists. This includes the issues of emails coming from our current CRM. The issues were difficult to diagnose and correct as they were a Gordian knot of minor issues across several subsystems that compounded each other. IT continues to look for ways to improve our offerings. Spam reduction is one of our top priorities at this point. We've made progress there, but there always can be more done. We look forward to welcoming aboard a new web minister, Nicholas. The newer CRM promises to be an excellent replacement for the current system and should provide many ways to improve the membership experience. Publishable summary. Things in IT are going well. I am beginning to feel settled into my new position. We have corrected several email issues related to both traditional emails and our email list. This includes email issues coming from our current CRM. These issues are difficult to diagnose and correct as they were a Gordian knot of minor issues across several subsystems that compounded each other. IT continues to look for ways to improve our offerings. Spam reduction is one of the top priorities at this point. We've made progress there, but more can always be done. We look forward to welcoming aboard a new web minister. The new CRM promises to be an excellent replacement for the current system and should provide many ways to improve the membership experience. Respectfully and farewell, this is the report for the Information Technology Department. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just with regard to the board action, it is my understanding, and I should have brought this to your attention previously, that you do not need board action to fill the role of web minister. That is fully within your purview. And I would also like to extend our thanks from the board for your service in the beginning of your tenure as our IT manager. For those that don't know, we were bombarded with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of spam email as soon as Officer Davis arrived, and he was able to work that out for us in fairly short order. So you have my thanks and the thanks of the board. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Turning next to Officer Costello, Society Communications Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my report for the Q2, July 2022. Requested board actions. A calendar of proposed SCA Inc. days of recognition is attached for the board's approval. These days are reflective of the SCA core values as outlined in Corpora and would be recognised officially on the SCA website and social media channels. To reflect the Society's international presence, the selected days are celebrated internationally. A note for the board's information, some theme days may be used for content creation, but would not necessarily be considered part of the official calendar of recognition days, like examples of things like World Poetry Day, World Honey Day, etc. I have no new policy interpretations or new policies at this time. My commendations go to Katie Gilroy, Leslie Luther Fulton, John Fulton, Louise DeCray, Liz Schreier, Jessica Van Hatten, Maya Tree, and Marla Selinger for their continuing support of the communications function. General status report. Work has continued on building our LinkedIn presence, and I'll give you a little plug there. If you're on LinkedIn, why not throw us a follow? The intent is to share regular content that promotes the Society's goals and activities. A trial of an online photo/video model/creator release has been very successful. I have flagged with the VP of Corporate Operations that I would like to investigate moving releases into our CRM in the future to allow for better visibility, information sharing and reporting. And once that project commences, we'll keep the board updated. A business card for the board and corporate officers has been created and is available for officers to have printed on request. Costs are covered by individuals. A meeting was scheduled with an academic who is interested in profiling the SCA as part of her thesis on the importance of community to well-being. Due to timeframes, a decision on formal SCA participation was discussed with the SCA president, and the SCA did not provide an official presence for that particular thesis. We also investigated a request for participation in a podcast which was received, and with the help of President Fulton, a representative was found for that. Concept briefs are in progress for 3 new web series, promoting the arts, martial activities, and providing support for newcomers. We completed the Talking Bods series in June. We received positive feedback for the series with comments recognising the importance of personalising and demystifying the members of the executive. My thanks to Leslie, Jessica and Katie for their support for this project. Publishable summary. Effective corporate communication supports and enhances the purpose of the organisation. Building on the strong foundations, the office is currently reviewing opportunities to increase transparency, minimise misunderstanding, improve engagement and understanding, support officers and continue to build the Society's identity. Communication grows and enhances the known world. My thanks to all those officers who support this function. And at present, I have no travel plans at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Directors, with regard to the request for board action. Director Regner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we adopt the SCA corporate calendar as presented by our Communications Officer.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Lloyd. Any discussion? Okay, well, the chair will recognize Director Painter.
As we discussed this yesterday, I think one of the things we need to be careful of is to promote activities, not put negative face on some of the activities. There was one of them that we had questions about, and I'd recommend that one be removed from the list.
Mr. Chair, I can definitely adopt that list. I also noted that there is one additional that I will bring to the board at a separate time that I realised was not included in my original list. So I can update the list for the board.
In light of that, I will also add, I recognize myself just to add, looking at the list that we have, there are 3 dates that are specifically focused on the LGBTQ community, which is a significant number of the dates the dates that are on the list. And I believe that that list could be made to be more inclusive of other communities that have not been recognized. I would ask that you would consider, if the board would consider tabling this for further amendments and work and bring it back at the next quarterly. Director Lloyd?
Yes, I was just going to say that we might want to talk about the purpose of this a little bit, just in terms of, I think we've alluded to it, but just in terms of these days of recognition, would really focus on recognizing underrepresented communities, or just really trying to do what we can to be more inclusive. And as Director Painter and yourself have said in previous discussions, we really want to be focused on the positivity of these inclusions. So just in case people hearing this might not know kind of more about what the purpose of it is, just want to make it a little more clear.
Director Regner?
Yes, based on feedback that I've just heard, I would like to make a motion, unless there's further discussion, to postpone temporarily. In other words, to table this motion until another meeting.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Shepard. All those in favor of tabling, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Officer Costello, for your work on this. It is important, and it is also important that the society get it right when we do it, and we are as inclusive as possible. So we're going to ask you to do a little bit more work on that and bring it back to us in the future. And otherwise, the board accepts your report by consensus. Thank you. Turning next to Officer Gilroy, social media.
Hello, everyone. So I'll just jump right in. Requested board actions, none. No policy interpretations and no new policies. Commendations. I apologize for my pronunciation of this name. Magnifica Tuia Alori and the Kingdom of the West for surpassing 10,000 followers on TikTok. Faustus for his excellent work as the KSMO of Palantir. Olivia Trevisana for doing the Discord in the Kingdom of Atlantia. Miriam and all of the photographers of LOCAC for sharing so much wonderful photography through their social channels. All of those content creators who are putting the creative in creative anachronism. And thank you to John, Liz, Rusty, Ross, and Bridget for their support of the social media offices. General status report. Groups are generally trending positively in terms of growth and on measurable social media metrics. Groups are exploring TikTok, which is great, and I think it'll help us connect with younger players, which is a space we've been struggling in. A lot of kingdoms have also been rewriting their social media policies, which I think is awesome because that world is changing so often. I encourage everyone to kind of keep an eye on it and update as needed. Content is flowing well from official pages and from individuals. I would remind everyone to use the hashtag MySCA hashtag so that I can find you guys and share all of the awesome things you're doing. The return to in-person events has helped a lot with this because people actually have things to share as they're going out on weekends. I'm making new print materials to update our look. I think it's been a while since those have been updated. I was going to show you some, but I don't know how to share my screen, and I'm trying to keep it brief. So if you want to see them, board members, shoot me an email. The first of the armor minimums videos is in production. Jarl Hoffen down here in Otsteora helped me with that. And so once that's done, I can kind of move into a policy of getting things recorded in other kingdoms, and then I can produce them that way. It's not just the Otsteora show, since that's where I'm located. Reports of poor behavior in official channels has been relatively sparse, which is nice compared to kind of what we were seeing over the course of the pandemic. So I think things are calming down now that there's in-person, you have to go see the people you're being rude to. So travel, last quarter I had no travel planned, but I will be in Callantyre next weekend. So there's that. No deputy reports, nothing else really to report.
Thank you, Officer Gilroy. By consensus, the board approves your report, accepts your report. Turning next to the DEI report. Is anyone prepared to present the report? Otherwise, oh, thank you. President Fulton, go right ahead. You're muted. How delicious is your suffering?
This is twice in a row. I thought I was over it. I am not. Greetings to the Board of Directors and the Society for Creative Anachronism. This is the Corporate Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer's report for the first quarter, covering April 1st, 2022 and June to June 30th, 2022, from Jessica Van Hatten. This is Zara's report. Comment: she has no requested board action, no policy interpretations, no new policy commendations. I would like to commend all of the DEI Kingdom officers who have approached the beginning of the summer with classes, information, and tips to make their kingdoms more accessible and inclusive. As always, Bridget, Liz, and John, your support is invaluable, and I treasure you all. As always, I am endlessly grateful for her deputies. Her deputies, Drew and Olivia, as without their support, I would certainly be overwhelmed. Thank you so very much. Jessica's general status report. The official DEI Facebook page is here. Insert. Has a variety of classes, interviews, and panels. Again, if you go to Facebook and look at SCA Diversity and Equity Inclusion, you will bring up this Facebook page. Has a variety of classes, interviews, and panels available as we begin to transition back to in-person events. I will continue to produce digital content as well as teaching in person. I'm accepting suggestions and recommendations for topics folks would most like to see explored. All DEI videos have now always been uploaded to the SCA YouTube page, and that is worth going to. Commercial briefly, SCA YouTube page. For more questions, please feel free to message the Facebook page or email Jessica directly at equity@sca.org. Jessica will continue to teach various classes on topics related to DEI, as do their many Kingdom DEI deputies, officers, council members, and many others. Please do not hesitate to reach out to Jessica if you would like to know more about when these might be, or if you are interested in scheduling these for your area, and I will do my best to facilitate. She is open if anybody would like suggestions on how to teach classes. That's for me, that's not from her report, because I know Jessica is more than willing to help anybody in this area of the SCA. Travel at this time, Jessica is planning to go to Ontario West Ward as well as Penzic and seeks to teach at both. Jessica will bring forward a small proposal to potentially help subsidize with her travel budget, if at all possible. Board, that is her Jessica's report for this quarter. I ask that you please accept it.
By consensus, the board accepts the DEI report. Thank you, President Fulton. Turning next to Vice President Schreier for the Society Seneschals report. And just because of the length and number of issues, I'm going to ask that we do them one by one with requested actions first, and then policy interpretations. We'll vote as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The requested board action, the only one that hasn't been acted on, is I would like to slightly revise the bullying and harassment policy that's located in the Seneschals handbook. The board has seen the entire red line. As I understand it, the board could approve in full or part the changes that I wanted, or none at all, or suggest other things. I haven't done this before, so I'm not quite sure how that works. Do you want me to, there are like 4 things I want to change. Do you want me to just list off what they are? How do you want me to handle this?
You can give just a brief summary.
Yeah, I wasn't going to read the whole thing, don't worry. Okay, in paragraph 2, it says bullying is systematic and unwelcome behavior. I'd like to change the word systematic to ongoing to make it a little more clear that it's not a one-off. I want to move paragraph 7, which starts out the test for bullying is the reasonableness of the behavior and the impact of the behavior on the recipient. I'd like to both move that up to be the 3rd item to make it more prominent. And also, President Fulton and I have discussed that we'd like to add the word both. The test for bullying is both the reasonableness of the behavior and the impact of the behavior, to make it more clear that it's a 2-pronged test. In paragraph 4, which gives examples, one of the examples says violence. I'd like to change that to read threats of violence. Our actual violence is already covered elsewhere. It should result in a call to the police. And finally, in paragraph 6, it gives examples of actions that aren't bullying. I would like to add another sentence. That sentence would be reasonable instructions or guidance issued by officers or agents of the SCA in the performance of their duties. We've had a little problem with that. We've had some people who seem to feel that an officer politely telling them they need to report on time or risk their warrant or something like that is bullying them. And I'd like to add that. It was in at one time in some draft or other, and it's gotten left out. So those are the changes I'm requesting the board make.
Thank you. Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Seneschals bullying and harassment policy revisions as presented in her report.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Bainter. And before we open to discussion, I just want to make sure that we are clear that that means you are moving to approve all 4 of the suggested changes, correct? Okay. Any discussion? Director Regner.
I just wanted to express my thanks to our Society Seneschal, who has a recurring and ongoing near obsession with making sure our policies are clear and concise. I really appreciate that, because having been crowned before, having to try to read some of these things at an event at night or at a strange time and strange place while a million other things are going on, I'm not a lawyer, and it's hard for me to read those things and interpret and understand them when they're particularly complex. And these revisions are a really good step, I think, to make them clearer and easier to understand. So I just wanted to express my thanks. I think this is a really good step in the right direction. I yield the floor.
Any further discussion? The chair recognizes himself. And I would also like to specifically thank you for adding the section with regard to the actions of the officers. A lot of people volunteer to make this organization work, to make this dream work, and that requires them sometimes having to do difficult things, and that should not be taken as an action of bullying or harassment when an officer is there doing their job. If it crosses a line, it crosses a line, and the board would, of course, address that in turn, but an officer simply doing their job should not have to address repeated complaints by people who are unhappy with the board's rules. So thank you for that. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. And the chair will exercise the right to vote, and the motion carries unanimously.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to the other action item has already been dealt with as variances. Moving on to policy interpretations, there were several this quarter. I'm going to ask the board to uphold each one. First, I was asked if a banishment from the royal presence means that someone cannot act as a warranted marshal or by extension other warranted officer during the banishment. Sanction manual defines that as a banishment. I'm going to paraphrase it. The banishment from the royal presence prevents someone at a function or activity where the sovereign or consort attends. They can't get near them. They can't attend a royal court, meetings where the crown is present. They can't enter the royal encampment. They can't contact the crown in any manner. They can't be within 50 feet of the crown. That doesn't prevent someone from serving as a local or regional officer while they're under such a banishment, but it does mean, my interpretation is that the banished person couldn't act as a marshal or other hands-on activity coordinator at an event where the issuing royalty is in attendance, because the royalty is going to have an interest in viewing or overseeing any event activity. And the burden is always on the sanctioned individual to make sure they are following the terms of the sanction. Now, the royalty could suspend their warrant if they wanted to, but that's a separate action from banishment from the presence. I would ask that the board uphold that interpretation.
Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the policy interpretation by the Society Seneschal regarding banishments from the royal presence and that banishment's interaction with active warrants.
Seconded by Director Lloyd. Discussion? Director Painter.
I'm curious how this would be implemented as something as an interkingdom war such as Pennsic.
Well, the issuing royalty is one that it applies to. So, for example, if I was going to participate in an attorney that was sponsored by a different kingdom, not the one that that had done the banishment, then that probably would be okay, but wouldn't be able to participate in an activity sponsored by the kingdom that had issued the banishment. That's sort of off the top of my head what I think.
I think that's reasonable. Thank you.
President Fulton.
I think we also need to understand, especially in an event like Pennsic, that this is not an opportunity for a royalty set to follow somebody to make their lives miserable. The objective of this is to tell this person not to go hang around and bug the royalty. It is not the royalty's ability to then go to a party that is open to the known world and then move across and get in front of somebody and say you have to leave the party. This is a reasonable expectation, especially when you're outside your kingdom and there are responsibilities on both sides of this. So, and there have been occasions where crowns have gone into private camps and said you have to leave sight, and then at that point the autocrat said no, you can't. That's beyond the realm of this. So it is a common sense thing, though. As you brought up, Pug, there are some questions, but once you leave your kingdom, everyone try to be as reasonable as possible. Thank you.
Any other discussion? The chair recognizes himself. I just have a sort of following up on Director Painter's question. Let's say that a person has been banished from the presence from Onsteora, and they're marshaling at Pennsic, something like the field battle or the woods battle. Would that preclude them from participating as a marshal in a large scenario like that?
I shouldn't think so, because it's as you say, a large scenario. This question actually sort of came up tangentially about someone being able to fight in a battle at a war like Pennsic, and as long as they weren't part, what I said at the time was as long as they're not part of, say, the royal unit, and they're not actively seeking out the crown or whatever to deal, who issued it to deal with it, they would be able to fight in that battle. They wouldn't be able to fight in, say, a tournament that crown was sponsoring. You are right that this is an iffy sort of thing. I was specifically asked about whether they could act as a warranted officer within the kingdom that they were banished from. So that was specifically what I was trying to deal with. But you're right that there are other things that get raised. That 50-foot thing, which I think board, that was before my time. I have told people before that if you're sitting in the lunchroom quietly eating your lunch and the Crown happens to come in and there's no way the room is 50 feet big, you don't have to jump up and leave immediately. You can quietly finish your lunch as long as you don't interact with them. That's my sense of how that should work. Again, common sense, which isn't always.
Thank you. Director-elect Falcon, excuse me.
Thank you. I have two questions for the senatorial, if it pleases the chair. Number one, as I understand it, the policy interpretation was related to whether or not they could perform their duties as a warranted officer under the given circumstances. Is that not a separate issue ultimately from where the discussion has gone, just for clarity, or would that be covered by this policy as well? Policy interpretation.
It sounds to me like we're going a little afield from the original intent. The original question was a kingdom where somebody had been banished from the royal presence, wanted to know if they could still be their local group's marshal. I didn't see a reason they couldn't be the local group's marshal, but if the local group had an event and the Crown was there, they maybe couldn't be the marshal in charge because the Crown would be expected to interact with the officer there, with the person running the event. That was where that came from.
Understood. My second question, being that we have gone a little bit afield of the original question, given where the discussion has gone, would it then follow that a citizen of the Kingdom of Glenavon who otherwise was banished for good and just reasons would have issue with going to Gulf Wars, considering that event is sponsored by the Kingdom of Glenavon, or participating, I should say?
A banishment from the royal presence only precludes being around the royalty, basically. So there would be certain things they wouldn't be able to do. But, they could go, they could camp, they could do things that didn't involve the Glenavon royalty. They couldn't attend order meetings, they couldn't attend Kingdom Court. If Glenavon hosted, an officially sponsored party, I'd say they probably shouldn't go to that. But banishment from the royal presence doesn't preclude attendance. It just precludes being near the royalty that issued it.
My last question, I apologize for asking, but could you read the specific policy interpretation you've made in its entirety so I understand the scope?
With the permission of the chair, I certainly can.
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. You're asking to read the entire policy?
What the policy interpretation is specifically, what it would cover and what it would not cover.
As written in my report?
Yes, ma'am.
With the permission of the chair, I can certainly do that.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was asked if a banishment from the royal presence means that someone cannot act as a warranted marshal or by extension other warranted officer during the banishment. A banishment from the royal presence is defined in the sanction manual as follows. A banishment from the royal presence at any function, activity, or event which the sovereign or consort attend precludes the sanctioned individual from attending any royal court, any meetings where the Crown is present, including peerage or officer meetings, entry into the royal encampment, contacting the Crown in any manner, or otherwise being within 50 feet of the Crown. That's the policy from the Sanctions Handbook. This does not, going on with my interpretation, this does not prevent someone from serving as a local or regional officer while under such a banishment. However, it does mean that the banished person could not act as a marshal or other hands-on activity coordinator at an event where the issuing royalty is in attendance, because the royalty have an interest in viewing or overseeing any event activity. The burden is on the sanctioned individual to make sure they are following the terms of the sanction. The royalty may suspend a warrant for the duration of their reign, but that is a separate action from issuing a banishment from the royal presence.
Thank you. I'm finished, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to recognize Director Lloyd.
Yes, I think we're way off on a tangent. I really think that we should be focused on common sense around what this means and just to make sure that the people do whatever they can to respect the 50 feet and things of that nature. There are tons of scenarios, particularly around inter-kingdom things or local events that you don't know people will be at. And I think as long as we observe common sense, then we shouldn't have an issue with this at all.
Okay, President Fulton.
Just real quick, just to let everybody know, the definition of presence was changed 2 or 3 years ago. Prior to this, it precluded attendance in an event of anybody who was banished from the presence. That is no longer the rule. Now you can be banished from the presence and go to events. You just got to be careful.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. Motion carries unanimously.
Next.
Next.
Okay, I'm going to throw in here that all of these arise from questions I get asked or issues that come up. It's not that I go hunting for corpora parts to interpret. Okay, the second one. A question arose as to the authority of the Earl Marshal of a kingdom to issue or confirm authorizations. And I'm going to go ahead and read it because it's not so long. Per Corpora 9A1. The Earl Marshal shall warrant marshals in order to conduct martial activities within their kingdom. Marshals are officers of the society and shall be warranted in accordance with society procedures laid down for warranting officers. In addition, marshals shall be warranted with particular authorities as defined by the Earl Marshal, whether those be by discipline, e.g. armored versus fencing, role, e.g. field marshal or authorizing marshal, or other defined roles in the chain of command, e.g. Deputy Earl Marshal. That's from Corpora. If the Earl Marshal has the authority to warrant all other marshals in the kingdom, as they clearly do from the above, and to define the areas of authority within the marshalate of their kingdom, then it stands to reason that the Earl Marshal is the ultimate arbiter of authorizations for all marshal systems within their kingdom. For the duration of the Earl Marshal's term, they're able to issue or confirm authorizations in any such system in accordance with any relevant kingdom laws, regardless of whether they themselves had previously been an authorized marshal in that particular system. So that is my interpretation of that. I would ask the board to uphold that.
Director Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept this policy interpretation as presented from the Society Seneschal.
Seconded by Director Bainter. Any discussion? Director Regner.
So this interpretation, it essentially says that the Earl Marshal can supersede as the arbiter any subsidiary rules that the kingdom may have put in place. Just to clarify.
The kingdom law could specify certain things,
right?
Because kingdoms can add but can't take away from corpora. But absent kingdom law, then things like kingdom marshal policies or kingdom this marshal or that marshal policies, the Earl Marshal can in fact overrule those because they're policies of his or her office.
Very good. Thank you.
Director-elect Falcon, do you have a question you want to ask?
No, Mr. Chair. The Society Seneschal answered the question that I had.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next.
Okay, I was asked what officers are required for a barony to maintain its status. Must all great offices required of a principality or kingdom be filled within a barony? Like many things, corpora is not very specific on this. A principality is required to have candidates for all great officer positions, while a shire, canton, or college is only required to have at least 3 officers, including a seneschal, an exchequer, and one of the following: a herald, a marshal, or a minister of arts and sciences. For a barony, corpora just says a set of officers acceptable to the crown. It doesn't define what that set consists of. Now, the Seneschal's Handbook has for many years stated that set of officers is generally considered to consist of the great officers required to run the group: Seneschal, exchequer, herald, Marshal Chronicler, and Minister of Arts and Sciences. That's been in the handbook since at least 2005. The largest issue seems to be the Office of Chronicler. That may be a function of the fact that information relaying has changed over the years. Most baronies now really find it necessary to have a web minister and or a social media officer, and they may have trouble filling all of these different positions with different people. Obviously, you're going to have a seneschal and exchequer. No group can exist without those. I find it hard to imagine a barony that has a suitable activity level without needing a knight marshal, an ANS minister, and a herald to do courts. As for chronicler, the Society Chroniclers policies, which the board approved last year, says a barony and any group that aspires to higher status than baronial must have an active newsletter and a warranted chronicler. There is no policy, however, that states that newsletter has to be a print edition. There's no policy that says the baronial chronicler can't also hold another office. So my interpretation is basically that, yeah, they have to have all those, but there's nothing that prevents that newsletter from being produced by, say, the web minister, social media officer, so the barony could combine those functions. And further, since one of the concerns that was raised has to do with shell baronies, where the barony consists of a number of cantons with no independent area, kind of like a kingdom consists of its branches and doesn't have an area that's just the kingdom and not the branches. Unless kingdom law forbids it, there's no reason that a canton's officer couldn't also hold the position for the barony. The kingdom law can, of course, specify other officers that are required for a barony, but if they want to. So my ruling is basically that, yeah, they have to fill those positions, but that it's okay in some cases to double up, particularly with the difficulties that seem to be around chronicler. I would ask the board to.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Director Shepherd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the policy interpretation by the Society Seneschal regarding great offices requirements for baronies.
Seconded by Director Degerstrom. Discussion? Okay, Director Regner?
Just real quick, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Did the officer requirements for groups get removed from corpora at some point, or is that actually in corpora?
What I just quoted was corpora, basically. For a barony, it just says a set of officers acceptable to the crown. It doesn't define the officers that set is. For shire canton, it does define 3 that are necessary, and for kingdoms, it defines a whole set, kingdoms or principalities.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, one more. This one involves requirements for virtual or ethereal events or courts. During the pandemic, online events and courts were what we were able to do, and they became the norm instead of just being very little known previously, if at all. During that time, my predecessor granted a variance that allowed those virtual events and courts to be held without prior publication in the Kingdom newsletter. That variance was ended by me on August 31st of last year as in-person events returned. I did reinstate it temporarily in January of this year because a number of kingdoms were all of a sudden shutting down in-person events because of that COVID winter surge. And a lot of crowns were like, oh, but we have these awards we want to give. We want a virtual court. That second variance was allowed to expire March 31st. I've been asked if virtual events and courts are still allowed, and if so, what the requirements are to hold them. My interpretation is that virtual events are still events. As such, they're permitted if a kingdom or branch wants to hold them. And if the royalty wants to hold a virtual court, they can. But Corpora 2C, business requiring prior announcement, still applies to those virtual courts or events. Those formal actions and announcements, officer appointment, awards, etc., can only occur at those events if a full announcement, including date, time, and place, has been published in advance in the Kingdom newsletter. In lieu of place, the announcement should include instructions for how to access the virtual court or virtual event. And the announcement should also state the sponsoring entity. Is it the kingdom? Is it a principality? Is it a local branch? And a designated event coordinator. It's possible that, you know, there could be another surge and we'd have to stop for in-person events, and I might grant another blanket variance, but at this time that's not the case. And so what I want to say is that they can have the virtual things if they want to. They're perfectly free to. They need to be published properly in the Kingdom newsletter if they are going to do business requiring prior announcement. I would ask that the board uphold that interpretation.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Great. Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the policy interpretation by the Society and Seneschal regarding virtual courts.
Seconded by Director Shepard. Any discussion? Director Degerstrom.
Just had a quick question. Is there anything we need to do around virtual events as far as like cost, for example? I know like we're not allowed necessarily to do completely free events, but I know we never charged for those things because we wanted to really encourage folks to continue meeting during COVID. And I don't think that we necessarily need to charge for online events. I just want to make sure we're not putting in a policy that then also is blocked by another policy.
There is no requirement that we charge a site fee for events. My barony has held free events before because they had a big treasury and they felt like they had gotten that from people, you know, coming to their events and paying site fees. So they would turn around and say, okay, this event we're not going to charge anything for, or we're not going to charge a site fee, just feast if you want it, that kind of thing. So there's no requirement to charge a site fee for events. Usually you need to because you have expenses.
Director, excuse me, President Fulton.
On the other hand, of course, it doesn't say you can't charge for online events if you wish. So, correct?
That is correct. If there was a site fee, it would need to be stated in the flyer.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, I have no new policies. Commendations. The Kingdom Seneschal of Drachenwald, Margaret Menzies, Mistress Margaret de May, turned over her office in June. Margaret had done a somewhat extended term of close to 3 years. She's been communicative and thoughtful in guiding her very complex kingdom through COVID. Of all the Kingdom Seneschals, she's the one who must deal with more than a dozen different countries, each with its own laws and public health regulations, as well as several SCA affiliate organizations with their own boards of directors. She's done all this with grace and intelligence, and she has my everlasting respect for that. Also in June, Pat Jackson, Duke Albrecht von Rugen, stepped down as Kingdom Seneschal of Avakal. He stepped into this job right as COVID began. He followed a couple of shortened terms and completed a full term filled with interesting times for his kingdom in the SCA. Congratulations on a job well done. By the time this report is publicly read, the Seneschal of Meridies will have changed. Midi Lee's Mistress Zain al-Munajima, she goes by Mittens. She assures me nobody ever calls her that or even knows who that is. Stepped up a bit early when her excellent predecessor found that her modern job had become too demanding to continue with a demanding SCA job also. Midi has also guided her kingdom through difficult times and done a fine job. I hope to see her in the future, as I have realized that routine travel to parts of Meridies is not as difficult for me as I used to think. And the West Kingdom has acquired a new seneschal. They were in need of an interim seneschal for 6 months, and Nancy Reimers, Viscountess Elsie Hungervogt, the erstwhile emergency deputy, filled the gap. Thank you for your service to the kingdom. Finally, at the end of this month, the Society Chatelain's office will change over. I inherited Anne Stevenson, Meister of Giovanna Adamari, as a deputy, and she has done a magnificent job in the office. She is perforce pretty self-sufficient due to my having other responsibilities, and she's been well capable of the task. Even during the pandemic and shutdown of SCA activities, she's kept in close contact with Kingdom Chatelains and help them through their recruitment struggles and office struggles. I have every confidence in her successor, but she does leave large shoes to fill. Thank you, Anne, for your continuing service to the SCA. And from the Kingdom Seneschals, I have the following commendations. I never feel like we can say thank you enough, so I always include these. Drachenwald. The members of the Drachenwald Law Council are to be commended for their diligence and efforts in completing this gender-neutral project, as well as updating other sections to make the law document more understandable. The members were Baron Gilbert Blackthorne, Master Dougal Mac Eberhard, Duchess Eleanor of Farringdon, Viscount Duncan Kerr, Mistress Memorantia von de Linde, Duke William of Richwood, Lord Ed O'Shale, Lady Elissa von Stira, Mistress Anna Sivakon, Viscountess Karina Talby Taitar, Countess Anna von Erwald, Master Pitari Uv, and Baroness Meredith af Westlux. Special thanks to Master Dougal and Lord Ide who chaired the council over the past 2 years. North Shield. I want to thank Eleanor for being a great Kingdom Seneschal through the roughest of times and being kind enough to answer all my questions as I learn the ropes. This is very different from just watching as emergency deputy. I have some big shoes to fill. I want to also thank the Honorable Lady Kate DeMallo as one of our first of three Kingdom advocates for her time in the position. She is the first of the three to be able to step down, and I know that she has and is a great asset to our Kingdom and to that fledgling position. Thank you, Kate. From Meridies. As this is my last quarterly report as Kingdom Seneschal, I wish to offer the following commendations. Mistress Honora Draper, Graf Ulrich von Brandenburg, Mistress Gwendolyn of the Alphabet Soup, Mistress Jane Wolfton, Grafine Katerina von Brandenburg, Mistress Katya Mulyovskaya, the Honorable Lord Dougal McFarlane, Sir Griffin O'Sward, Baroness Gira Donsdaughter, the Honorable Lord Ian MacArthur, Baroness Genevieve d'Avignon, Baroness Emelina Lenoris. These individuals provided immeasurable support, whether it was personal, logistics, emotional, advisory, investigative, spare brain cell, or any number of other things. Some of them have been or are Kingdom officers. Some are the void into which I scream. Some have been willing to handle any ugly task that I handed them, and all of them have proven themselves to be invaluable. From Kaid. The Kingdom of Kaid is doing well, and we have our officers and volunteers to thank for their time and energy. We are glad that people are excited to return to SCA events. Our Kingdom Exchequer Cara Michelle Duvalier stepped down at Petrera War this past weekend, as he wrote the report, and we cannot thank her enough for all her work to keep the lights on during quarantine and the height of the pandemic. We are sure her replacement will keep up the fantastic job she has set. Their Majesties Drada and Valric bring a joy to our kingdom, and we are looking forward to the upcoming summer events. Thank you to everyone who works hard to continue to make the magic of the SCA happen in our kingdom. And finally, from Lockhawk. This quarter, I'd like to thank Her Excellency Countess Beatrice Maria Malatesta for staying on as my deputy. There have been a few curly questions thrown at me, and to have her there to bounce ideas off and nut out problems has been invaluable. And the entire Rowanee Festival stewarding crew. Rowanee Festival is our largest event, and the crew successfully navigated the pandemic requirements to hold the festival for the first time in 2 years. Whilst the event was capped at a reduced attendance number, it was still a good event. It was my first time attending, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Travel. I have been to Lily's War and to Great Western War this past quarter. Great Western War was a new experience. I've never been to on tier before, and I was made very welcome. And I'm going to Penzic at the end of this week. All this is at my own expense, of course. I had a trip that I was trying to arrange that is going to fall through. Publishable summary. After a winter lull caused by the Omicron variant of COVID, most kingdoms seem to be resuming something close to normal activity. It seems to me, based on quarterly reports, that with outdoor events being the norm, there are more events and practices happening. The majority of kingdoms have dropped any COVID restrictions, most of those continuing are in the Northeast, which is understandable as they were hit hard by the latest surge. Several kingdoms do continue to use the COVID safe policy, which will be in effect for Penzic War. The populace is hereby reminded that either a negative test within 72 hours of initial entry to Penzic or proof of being fully vaccinated per CDC definitions will be required of anyone age 5 and up. The populace is also reminded that when traveling to other realms, the rules on masks and vaccination may be different from those at home, and the wise traveler will check this out before departure. Most kingdoms who have signature spring, summer, or autumn events seem to be returning to holding them at this time, and the populace generally seems to be happily returning to them. As we have all gotten a little out of practice interacting with larger groups of our fellow humans, I'd like to remind everyone to offer a little patience and grace to our fellow participants. I occasionally need those reminders myself. Not every careless word is worthy of a full-fledged complaint, and not every disagreement is a major incident. We all need to extend the same benefit of the doubt that we would want ourselves, as nobody capable of speech is entirely innocent of committing thoughtless acts. And please extend that grace to your officers and volunteers. Modern communication methods notwithstanding, most things that happen in the SCA do not require an instantaneous response. In fact, it's often better not to respond immediately for several reasons. Follow the rules, have fun, learn new things, enjoy being together again, and please help out to whatever extent you are able, be it running events, holding office, or something as simple as spotting a piece of trash on the ground and taking it to a trash can. Thanks to all of our volunteers, from the highest officers to the person sweeping the hall after feast. This organization could not exist without you. And that concludes my report. I do have a deputy report from the Chatelaine.
By consensus, the board accepts the Society Seneschal report, and you can go ahead with the Chatelaine report.
Okay. The report was written by Megan Ladd, Margaret Ladd, who will be taking over this office. Well, she's basically taking it over as of about now. She reports that SCA activities and demos are returning to pre-pandemic norms and that newcomer interest is high in many places. Officer recruitment continues to be an issue with Chatelaines as well as elsewhere. The Society Chatelaines office is working on trying to centralize materials, videos, etc., that aid in recruitment. And that concludes that summary.
Thank you very much. The board accepts the Chatelaines report by consensus. And at this time, we're going to take a short break, and we will be back here in 15 minutes. Directors, I ask that you please pause your screen and don't turn your camera off.
Techno peasant that I am, all I see is stop sharing my webcam. I'm sorry, what?
Me too.
If you hover over your actual video with your cursor, that's where the pause is.
Oh, thank you so much, Natalie.
I'm sorry.
Over my hover over your face, Darcy, with your cursor. Yeah, like where your video is, and it'll show a little pause button.
Yay! Are you there? Yes. Yeah, we're all on a bathroom break.
Darcy, you are not muted.
Okay. Now I am.
check. I am unconvinced that that is not a clip-on.
The effort is what counts, right? So.
Is it like James Bond? Are we doing? I didn't realize we were doing quick changes.
He totally like went Bond on us.
I like it.
I see. I'm gonna have to
I'm
step up
ashamed
my
of
wardrobe
nothing.
game for the next board meeting.
Yes, next board meeting will be tuxedos and ball gowns. Your choice.
John and I did tuxedos when he was on the board once, and I kept coming out with a silver platter serving him Diet Cokes all the way through the board meeting. So
Were you wearing pants?
Yes, thank God. Yes, he was wearing.
that's back when I was in person.
All right, folks, let us resume the SCA's good business. Are we all ready? All right. Next on the agenda is the Vice President for Corporate Operations, Vice President Ducre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know everybody is waiting with bated breath for my report. One sec, thank you. Okay, this is the second quarter report from the corporate operations, membership statistics, and accounting information has been provided to the board. Our June financials have taken a little bit longer, but I actually just received them, so I will be providing those to you at the end of the meeting. Requested board actions, policy interpretations, and new policies, none at this time that have not already been approved. Commendations. I would like to thank wholeheartedly everybody who was involved in the decision-making process that brought us to move forward with our new CRM system, Neon One. That's President John Fulton, Treasurer Carolyn Richardson, our accounting specialist and event module manager, Ms. Alatia, our IT manager, Sam Davis, directors Ross Regner and Jennifer Krockmal, and our SCAR's deputy, Kenda McCormick, and as well as our admin assistant, our behind-the-scenes champ, Natalia Yarosevich. Everybody took the time, sat in on meetings with me, asked really great questions from a lot of different perspectives, and I feel like we've made a good choice, and I really appreciate that. And thanks doubly to Sam, our IT manager, as well as our sysadmin, David Dubry, for investigating and sleuthing out some persistent technical issues that have already been mentioned. We had some email issues, we had subdomain issues with our current CRM, and you guys really, really helped that. So we have our, everything's mostly back in working order and getting better by the day. So our general status report, as previously announced, we have chosen Neon One CRM to replace our current system, Members Only. As I've mentioned before, Members Only is going to be reaching its end of life. The president of that company is retiring. So we have chosen Neon One. It is a very cost-effective and very suited for our needs data management solution that focuses on nonprofits. It's going to allow us to update and streamline a lot of our processes. We should have a more user-friendly technical experience for our members, as well as for our fearless volunteers that help us manage everything, events and reporting on the back end. So timing for that, we're currently in the technically week 3 to 6 phase of a proposed 12-week implementation. We are working with Neon staff to, we're working in a basic shell system right now. Our next step is for Neon to work with members only. We have a meeting on this coming Wednesday for a data analysis call. This has been delayed a little bit due to President Michael Stein's health, but we are going to be meeting with him, and I should have a timeline, which I know everybody is waiting for, all the SCARS deputies and Ms. L and everybody. Right now, we are looking at an anticipated go live date in early October, but we should have a plan for implementation and training for everybody by the end of next week. We are hoping for minimal downtime during the migration of systems. Everybody always does, but thank you in advance for your patience with that. Again, some recurring technical issues have now been resolved. We are working through a shipping backlog with the marketplace that was caused by some of these issues. And we will be bringing on a temporary shipping assistant actually beginning on Monday for a few weeks just to help us get caught up with that. People have been reaching out to us very kindly to let us know that they haven't received their orders yet. And just so you know, if you're wondering about an order, please contact the stock clerk or membership at SCA.org. We've got you. We are in the beginning stage of our financial audit, which we do every year. For the previous year, 2021, this is being conducted remotely, as in previous pandemic years. Mizelle will be working with the audit team and Kingdom Exchequers. We're doing an inventory. That all's just kind of going according to plan. As President Fulton mentioned, the Membership Assistance Fund is continuing to be utilized regularly, both by members in need of a little bit of financial support and by regular donations from all of you. So we really, really appreciate that. If you have any questions about donating to or using this program, you can find information on SCA.org, or you can just contact the corporate office directly. All requests are confidential. And lastly, the PO box is still new and has still been updated as of January 1st. The new mailing address is listed on the website. We are still working on getting some forms updated, I notice, but as of now, even though forwarding is continuing for a few more months, the Milpitas PO box is closed. So update your Rolodexes. Publishable summary is pretty much the exact same thing, so I'm not going to read it again. And that is my report.
I did it. I was muted. John, you're not alone. Okay. Your report is accepted with by consensus of the board. Next up is the publications manager.
That'll be me as well. Gloria's not here. This is the second quarter report from Publications Manager Gloria Woodard, known in the SCA as Honor of Restermel. Requested board actions, policy interpretations, new policies, none. Commendations, thanks and commendations to the publications team for their hard work and diligence in providing the populace with beautiful and informative newsletters, magazines, and scholastic journals. A very special thanks to the SCA librarian archivist, Charles Alderson, Master Aldred von Lexund Frostheim. There it is, the full name, for his incomparable service by preserving the historical documents of the SCA. He has spent decades housing, caring for, and organizing huge numbers of publications, documents, and historical memorabilia. So thanks to Charles on behalf of Gloria and all of us. General status report. The publications team continues to provide monthly and quarterly publications to inform, educate, and entertain the populace. Tournaments Illuminated and Complete Anachronist are exceptional publications which are printed quarterly and available by subscription to members. The monthly Kingdom newsletters are available monthly on SCA.org as well as by print. Publishable summary. The publications team works hard to provide the populace of the known world with quality publications. Please consider sharing your talents by contributing artwork and articles. And travel, none. Travel also, none for me as well. That is the report from publications.
President Fulton?
Louise, do we want to talk about the postage?
Oh, yes. Yes, that is not, it is not in the report, but it is something we've been discussing on a related note. We are examining our subscription fees right now for printed materials and publications with a view to raise them a little in the future, given the rising cost of both paper and postage. Right now, like our membership fees, these have not changed in quite some time. So we're going to be looking into that. Current subscribers will not be affected by any of these decisions. So if you have a subscription, don't worry. But it is something that we're looking into.
Okay, thank you. The board accepts your report by consensus, and we're going to go out of order and do the complete anarchist next.
Go anarchy. Oops, I'm muted. Hold on.
Anachronist, I'm so sorry.
That's it. Oh, I'm muted. I can't say yes.
You know, Mr. Chairman, we generally frown on that anarchy part. Just
we do. It's okay. It's an easy slip. Okay, so what's up here? Let's see. Commendations. I have a bunch here because this report actually covers 2 CAs. I was a little behind with the last report, but caught up with this one. So in my commendations, I really want to thank Natalie Aked, I think it's pronounced, for CA 195 of Herd and Water, a young dynasty Mongolian food primer. Basically, it was redacted Mongolian recipes that she has cooked and has proven to be quite tasty. She'd been working on this complete anachronist for several years, and I'd actually hoped to have published it back in 2020, but due to various, actually all non-COVID related, but various very serious health issues on her part, it had to be postponed. One of the things that I know Reardon does this also, and I think the board members are of course aware of this, but the general public may not be, is one of the jobs we do is we keep trying to stay in touch with writers and artists, people who've proposed ideas or they've given us something partial and then we don't hear anything again. And we do occasionally send out, try not to make them too nagging, but we do try to stay in touch with them just to say, just checking in, are you okay? You know, anything I can do to help. And I did that. I did that often, you know, every few months over the past 2 years. And finally, earlier this spring, she wrote back saying that life was better, conditions had improved, and she was ready to make the final necessary changes. So I was really happy. I'm delighted that it was finally ready, and particularly happy with her photographs of dishes completed from her redacted recipes, which I've had people say really kind of, you know, in a way made it. And I thought it was a great idea. We were a little under page-wise, and I always love it in cookbooks when they have the pictures of what it's meant to look like. So I'm really glad she was able to do that. Thanks also to her reviewers, Craig Jones and Alex Story, and kudos also, per usual, to the magnificent Elise Fleming for her eagle-eyed assistance with copy editing, and also, once again, to the magnificent Sue Gilbert for her expert layout and design work. And so this became the very late first quarter 2022 complete anachronist. The second quarter 2022 complete anachronist, CA 196, Aglets, Medieval and Post-Medieval by Gerald A. Livings. That's another publication that's been in the work for a couple of years. And the final version is very, very different from the first version I saw probably 2-3 years ago. So many thanks to him, to Gerald A. Livings, for persevering with his research and his writing, making recommended changes, and allowing me to make some more changes to shape the book into what it is now. It is a complete anachronist that has been some time in the making, reflecting the author's fascination with and thorough research about aglets, an important dress accessory. An important dress accessory. So thanks to his reviewers, John Cherry and Charles Luton Brain. Per usual, once again, Elise Fleming and Sue Gilbert. Just take it as granted that I'm extraordinarily grateful to all of their extremely hard work for both of them. Elise is an amazing copy editor, and Sue Gilbert, fantastic with design and making, very patient, you know, with having to make changes. So fantastic work. So that became CA 196, the second quarter, and I've received my copies over here in England, so they were sent out on time. So I'm glad about that. General status report. So those 2 have been published, caught up. I'm very happy when I wrote this, when I typed this saying it should be mailed out in early July, and it was. So it was on schedule. At this point, I'm not entirely sure what the next CA will be. It's going to sort of depend on turnarounds, but it's most likely going to either be a follow-up on CA 194, which was about Elizabethan and Jacobean theatrical performances. It's a follow-up about rehearsals and actual recreated performances of Elizabethan theater by the same author. And there's also one on wattle and dahl, which I'm still, it still may be, and still that review is, I think, finally being finished, and it looks like the changes are not going to, be extensive. So it could be one or the other of those. I'm not for sure. Publishable summary. Okay, so for CA 95, many SCA members are familiar. Oh, let me go back. CA 95 of Herd and Water, Yuan Dynasty Mongolian food primer. Many SCA members are familiar with pre-17th century Western cooking, but not as many have experienced Asian food from that same time period. CA 196 of Herd and Water, a Yuan Dynasty Mongolian food primer, wants to familiarize the reader with the food served in the latter part of the Yuan Dynasty, 1279 to 1368 CE, the time when the great Mongolian hordes ruled Asia. While dispelling some myths about Mongols' food, it also provides original recipes translated in English, along with 21st century versions, including ingredients easily obtainable today, and photos of many of the prepared dishes. These recipes have been tried and tested not only by the author and her family, but also by many people in the Kingdom of Lokha. Not only will you learn about Mongolian food and cooking, but you'll also be able to replicate it. And for the current issue, CA 196, aglets, medieval and post-medieval. Aglets, lace tags, chapes are all terms describing items that are in some way used to finish the end of laces, such as shoelaces, thongs, or cords. Although aglets seem to have been both functional and decorative throughout the centuries, little is known about the actual manufacturing process before the modern era. Aglets, medieval and post-medieval, attempts to fill in this knowledge gap with a combination of research and experimental production of aglets using such tools and processes as can be inferred from the finished forms of extant aglets, extant tools, and any surviving tool marks. Readers will also be able to see pictures of different types of aglets as used in SCA period artwork, extant aglets as they appear today, and recreated ones that can be used in living history. Nothing confidential. There's no travel related to CA. I did go to a local demo outside of Salisbury, Wiltshire, for my shire a little bit ago. And I do have we have a mundane driving trip, but it's not SCA, driving all the way from southern England up to Orkney, where we'll see many, many, many period and pre-period sites. But other than that, I think that's about it. So thank you.
Thank you. The board, by consensus, accepts the report of the complete. I said your words. Thank you very much. Turning next to Tournaments Illuminated. I got that one right. Officer O'Neill.
I'm sitting here thinking I can't do anything fun like Anarchist with it, except that, with the heat and everything being as it is lately, it might as well be Tournaments Irradiated. Sorry, got that out of my system now. This is a report for the Office Tournaments Illuminated editor for the second quarter of 2022. I have no requested board actions, no policy interpretations, no new policies. Commendations, as always, I want to express my appreciation to TI staff, Kingdom liaisons, contributors, and supporters, without whom the magazine would not exist as we know it. I am also grateful to other members of the SCA publications team who have been and are so very supportive, and as Ellen has pointed out, often while juggling a lot on their own plates. General status report, issue 218 is going to press in July. In fact, I expect it to go in the coming week. Issue 219, which is third quarter 2022, should go to press by the end of August. Issue 220, fourth quarter 2022, should go to press by the end of September, which will put the magazine back on its regular production schedule. And if that sounds like I have an awful lot of tabs open, I do. Fortunately, in this one case, I do know where the music is coming from. For issue 220, owing to reader and contributor interest for issue 219, the quest will return to the topic of ranged weapons, which appeared in the pages last year, and related feature material is scheduled to appear. Note the use of the phrase scheduled to appear. I have every hope that in fact it will, but certainly something will be there. I always, in case anyone has ever wondered and or noticed, I do try to have at least one article, one feature that relates to the quest at hand. Can't always manage it, but I enjoy doing it when possible. I don't know. It's an odd pattern thing I like, I guess. Sometimes I manage it, sometimes I don't. For issue 220, the tentative quest topic, the project that taught me the most. Submissions are for questions about quest topics are welcome should be sent to the editor at ti@sca.org. Welcome to the editor at SCA. Now, following up on last quarter's introduction of the idea of the Tournaments Eliminated online feature concept, possibly appearing under the banner Tournaments Eliminated Presents Inside Voices. The planned initial article to build the castle is undergoing edits, and moving forward in the production process, I expect to have specific information on a posting by the third quarter meeting. I have no travel. Publishable summary is Tournaments Eliminated issue 218 is going to press in July to be followed approximately 6 weeks later by issue 219. Issue 220 is in production. Issue 221 is on the drawing board. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And the board accepts your report by consensus. Turning next to the Society Chronicler, Vice President Ducre.
Yes, that's me again. I was just realizing that Crystal isn't here. So this is the Society Chronicler report for the second quarter by Crystal Smith, known as SCA as Mistress Cecilia Blythe, Order of the Pelican. Very short and sweet. No board actions, policy interpretations, or new policies at this time. Commendations, my gratitude to the Kingdom Chroniclers who are making Black Fox recommendations, and to Countess Honor for being there to keep me in line. General status report, getting used to the job, enjoying research to answer questions from Kingdom Chroniclers. Publishable summary, slowly but surely getting more comfortable in this fairly new to me position. I appreciate that there are plenty of people willing to help in any way that they can. No known world summary or travel, no addendums. That's the scoop. That's the story.
Thank you very much. And the board accepts the report of the Society Chronicler by consensus. Next, we have the Society Treasurer's report, Treasurer Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Herein follows the second quarter of the 2022 report to the Board of Directors from Carolyn Richardson, the Society Treasurer, also known as Techabet of Green Lake in the SCA. Requested board actions, approval of a revised donation receipt form for charitable contributions. The prior version of the form did not comply with the IRS requirements and still contained the old corporate office information. And item number 2 is due to overall inflation, we should consider adjusting our budget for some expense categories upward to reflect actual anticipated costs through the end of the year. And the board was provided with a list of those suggested changes. Policy interpretations, we were asked to rule on whether or not virtual events that charge a fee are required, whether they're required to charge the NMR, and we decided virtual events do not require the charging of the non-member surcharge if the event charges a fee to attend. New policies, none. Commendations, many thanks to Ms. Elatia and Bonnie Stringer for their assistance in getting me moved into this office so quickly. And while gaps do still exist, they are quickly closing. General status report, the SCA corporate office is still operating under a negative balance for quarter 2 of 22 due to a variety of factors. On the bright side, membership revenues are currently ahead of projections, and year to date we are showing a small profit for a few months versus our budgeted losses. The beginning of actual events versus virtual events has helped to some extent. However, our investment account has suffered a considerable drop since the beginning of the year due to the ongoing bear market that has been occurring since the middle of January. And unfortunately, I just recently got the June report for that, and that trend has continued rather drastically. I'm still working on updating the published treasury reports, such as the budget and membership statistics, which have not been published on the website since 2020. I hope to have the 2022 reports updated and published no later than the end of August, using the June 30th 2022 cutoff. And I'm not certain if 2021 can be recreated entirely because I don't believe membership numbers can be obtained from the current membership system any longer. Publishable summary, the SCA corporate office is still operating under a negative balance for Q2 due to a variety of factors such as decreased membership overall. On the bright side, membership revenues are currently ahead of projections, and year to date, we are showing a small profit for a few months versus our budgeted loss. The beginning of actual events versus virtual events has helped to some extent. However, our investment account has suffered a considerable drop. I'm still working on the published treasury reports, such as the budget and membership statistics, which have not been published on the website since 2020. I hope to have those done by the end of August using a June 30th, 2022 cutoff, and I will probably publish them quarterly after that. And we must continue to remain diligent and stay within budget when possible. Travel, I have done no travel. I will be attending Great Western War. And that concludes my summary.
Okay, thank you. Turning back to section A of the Treasurer's Report, requested board actions. The first action on the Treasurer's Report was for approval of a revised charitable donation receipt form. Director Bainter.
Director, I recommend we approve the revision per U.S. federal guidelines for the charitable donation receipt as presented.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Shepard. Any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Second requested board action is adjustment of the budget. Is there a motion? Director Regner.
I would like to move that we accept the budget changes as presented by our treasurer.
Seconded by Director Lloyd. Any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Director Regner, was that in favor or opposed?
It was in favor. My apologies.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The board accepts the treasurer's report by consensus. And we turn now to the Society Exchequer. Officer Stringer.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. There was also a policy interpretation in her report.
Oh, I apologize. You are correct. I missed that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
The policy interpretation raised by the Society Treasurer is as follows. Virtual events do not require the charging of the non-member. Why am I blanking on the R? I'm sorry, charging of the NMR if the event charges a fee to attend. Director Regner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we uphold the policy interpretation as presented by our corporate treasurer.
Is there a second? Seconded by Director Lloyd. Discussion or questions? Director Bainter.
I guess I'm not sure if that aligns with the earlier discussion by the Society's Seneschal of virtual events. It's been a while since I've read the attachment and I was trying to find it to review it again.
It's in the report. If you scroll down.
Go ahead, Director Lloyd.
Yeah, I mean, I took another look at it, and it seemed that the type of event it was really around a virtual tour, and so I think for that, the reason why I didn't have an issue with it was because I think previously, Liz, you mentioned that sites don't have to charge event fees. They can or they don't have to. So I figured in terms of this is a fee that, you know, it would be good to make it the same for everybody to pay. So I didn't have an issue with this policy interpreted.
Thank you. And just so that I'm clear, if I understand correctly, what Vice President Schreier and Treasurer Richardson have both indicated is that while you may charge a fee, you are not required to, but you can, as President Fulton pointed out. Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion, I see it. Motion carries unanimously.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Who seconded that?
Director Lloyd.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Okay. Turning next to Officer Stringer for the Society Exchequer report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, let me apologize for the froggy voice. I've been battling that COVID bug this week, so please bear with me. This report contains the activity for the second quarter of 2022. I have some requested board actions. The first would be to approve the Kingdom of Artemisia's financial policy.
Bear with me one moment. Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion? Director Degerstrom.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget for the Kingdom of Artemisia as presented.
The financial policy?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded, Director Bainter. Discussion or questions? Okay. Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, the next one would be to approve the Kingdom of Atlantia's financial policy. I do know there was some discussion on this policy, and it was internally recognized by the Kingdom that they had in the past several household members being directly on the financial committee. And in lieu of that, they wanted to make that committee as transparent as possible. And by asking other officers to be able to stand in on the financial committee or step up to the financial committee would prevent that very thing from happening. So I just wanted that to add to that to clarify that discussion.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Director Lloyd.
A motion that we approve the Kingdom of Atlantia financial policy as presented by the Society Exchequer with her additional addendum.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Bainter. Discussion or questions? Director Shepard.
So my concern here, we're talking about SCA households, not personal households, correct?
Correct.
So the problem, my concern, you're running into this throughout the SCA is lack of volunteers in some cases. A lot of times you'll find people who are part of a household and have no, they put in for a job, they got a job, and all of a sudden they can't do part of the job simply because they're in a household. We're not talking about husband and wives. We're not talking about people who live in the same house. We're talking about people who happen to be friends and have a shared opinion of things so that they join a household. It may come to a situation where you can't get people to do this committee correctly. Is that been considered?
Was that a question, Shep? I didn't under.
Yes.
And that's what they were recognizing. They want to, everybody, I think everybody in the SCA want to make their offices transparent as possible. And we are talking SCA households, not a physical address where a husband, wife, spouse, partner, sister, brother, not that type of relationship. But they want the financial committee to be fair and open and to be able to run Atlantia in the best way possible, as transparently as possible.
President Fulton?
Yeah, Bonnie, this is the financial committee for the kingdom, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is not smaller groups or anything like that. This is the kingdom branch financial policy. And
Yes,
their
sir.
intent is to make sure this is all done responsibly and there are no dangers of not being enough people to fill a 3-person or so committee for the kingdom, right? This is
Correct.
purely on making sure that we fulfill the requirements and the intended requirements of making sure our financial decisions are done responsibly without bleed over from personal relationships.
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
Director Degerstrom?
Yes, I wonder how they're going to, are they going to force people to register when they enter a household? Are they going to, like, how are they going to monitor this? It's not an official thing in the SCA. It is a very, very much unofficial thing in the SCA. It is something that we've created out of our culture, which is a fantastic opportunity for a lot of people to be a part of something. I just don't necessarily see how it could be enforceable if we're not registering people, and I'm not sure that's a really great way to go either. Have they addressed that at all, Bonnie?
No, ma'am, they have not addressed that. I think it was just something that had come up in the past, and they wanted to ensure the transparency of the financial committee.
Director-elect Falcon?
And I'm the next person to run afoul of a mute problem. For clarity, if I'm following the discussion correctly, this would be around financial policy of Kingdom Atlantia as presented, point number 1, looking at the red line.
Yes, sir.
Where exactly does it say anything about being in a household in that? I mean, members living at the same address or being in a relationship with one another beyond friendship.
It has come up in the past, and they were just trying to prevent.
Oh, not questioning that it's come up. I'm questioning what's the language.
And they could have the ability to add up to 5, I think 5 financial committee members, so that they could keep a non-biased and a transparent financial committee, and
not questioning
manage SCA funds well.
Not questioning that it's come up or the perceived need for it. I'm questioning that the language says that. Looking at point number 1 in the presented policy red line.
I would have to go back right now, sir. I don't have that in front of me. I'd have to go back and reread it. But that's where it was changing, I believe, from the 3 members to it could be up to 5 members.
Understanding that, and of course, at this particular moment, my opinion means nothing. But as I read the policy, it is not in line with what you just said.
That if we need to table this one, I'm perfectly happy to do so.
So for clarity, I believe what Director-elect Falcon is indicating is that our discussion was focused on not having members of the same household in order to avoid potential conflict and transparency in the vote. However, Section 1 of the financial policy for the Kingdom of Atlantia indicates that the added language reads, and up to 3 great officers of the state for the Kingdom of Atlantia, maintaining the following provisions. The Council of the Exchequer will have an odd number of members, 3 or 5, to avoid tie votes. The members may not live at the same address, be related to one another, or be in a relationship with one another beyond friendship. There's no mention in that clause about households.
And again, that was to be transparent. Sorry, y'all, I'm struggling here.
Director Shepard.
Bonnie, you're perfectly okay. That's exactly what I was trying to make sure, that it was not speaking of households. My concern was that we should not be making decisions based on unofficial groups of people. This is exactly what this is saying is perfectly fine. It was my misunderstanding, and I apologize.
Alrighty then. I believe we are now all clear. Director Regner.
I heard a suggestion to table it. I'm gonna make a motion to table. If that fails, then I recommend that we move straight to a vote, just to quickly expedite the process here. So I move to table this piece of business.
Is there a second? Seconded by Director Bainter. All those in favor of tabling, please raise your hands. The motion carries.
Thank you. The third one is to approve the Kingdom of Anstiora's financial policy. After some discussion, I think we need to table this one. There's section number 15 under events, E4D3. They're trying to offer site admission free to those 17 and under, that many kingdoms have also done, and they were not clear enough to state it was just the site fee, not feast, not cabin, not all the other amenities. And I think we need to have them make that point clearer and come back and revisit that one.
Okay. In light of that, well, I'm sorry, do you want to withdraw that from consideration by the board?
Yes, sir. We would like to have them clarify that one point, and then we will resubmit.
Thank you. I just want to make sure procedurally, Officer Luther Fulton, we can just have she can just withdraw that from consideration as an action item, correct? Okay, so that's going to be withdrawn. Okay, and you can proceed.
The next was we were going to approve the Middle Kingdom's financial policy. That one did not make it to the board's package, so I'd be more than happy to withdraw that one and see if we can do it at a conference call or another day.
Okay. I apologize. So you want to withdraw that?
Yes, sir. It did not make it to your packet. It was sent, but some kind of way it was lost in space and did not make it to y'all.
Okay. You can continue.
Then I held the for rework the Kingdom of North Shield, so that one was not there for your approval, just for the knowledge that we pulled it.
Okay.
And for clarity, please, going forward, we at one time had the kingdoms to redline their financial policies. They would highlight in yellow what they wanted to remove and make the additions in red. And I found some of them have been all over the place, and I apologize for that. I would like some clarity, please, from the board, so I can let the kingdoms know which way you would prefer to see these markups, so that everyone can do it the same way.
What would be ideal for the board is to have two copies presented to us, one which would be the final edit and one with a red line with the suggested items removed and suggested items added in. It's easier for us to compare and see what the final product will look like and what the edits are in an edited document.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Policy interpretations, I have none. No new policies. Commendations, I'd like to thank the following exchequers that have stepped down or are in the process of stepping down. Artemisia Shelley Johnson, Outlands Dawn Reed, Northshield Ron Williams, West Chris Gulliver, Middle Valerie Parks. Thank you all for your service to the society in the craziest of times. And I hope someday we can all may hoist a glass in person. Have no variances. General status, all kingdoms are discovering how important training is. We have all gotten rusty during the quiet times. And the publishable summary, a reminder that kingdoms that are approved to use PayPal under current society policy may continue to use PayPal. Kingdoms and groups must maintain a clean financial house. That means all reports, NMR, all these things must be current. And if PayPal is here for at the door credit card payments, the financial policy must be updated to use PayPal Zettle because PayPal is making that changeover. Refresher training for PayPal is available when needed. And all groups and kingdoms must remain vigilant. We've had several checks stolen from the mail system. Please watch your account balances for any fraudulent charges. I have no travel at this time, and that ends my report.
Thank you. Your report is accepted by consensus of the board. Let us move to Laurel, Queen of Arms, Officer Smith.
Hi. Okay, so I have a number of requested board actions. Can we do them one at a time or all in a chunk?
I think we can do them one at a time.
Okay. So my first, well, these were all changes to our standards for evaluation of names in Armory, SCA. The item 1 is approval of a change to A5F1B, substantial change of direction or division to add a field division called Orley to be substantially different from all other field divisions. This is a recently documented period field division, and we're adding to this section to make it clear that it doesn't conflict with other field divisions in Armory.
Officer Smith, I apologize. We can do the requested board actions as one, and the policy interpretations we'll do separately.
Okay. And so the second one under this is approval of changes to the augmentation rules in A3, A3, A5C4, and AC6 to support the use of chiefs as a method of augmentation, which is another period practice that someone documented. And we clarified while doing this that if someone has a lozenge, little diamond shaped with a single charge on it, it's not considered arms of pretense or an augmentation. This is in line with precedent that we'd already been working on, but it was nice to codify this with period practice added to the rules. The third item is we are approving changes, or want to approve changes to A3D2C, unity of posture and orientation, which is a really hairy rule to clarify how we look at charges on the field. Do they all have to have the same, do they all have to face the same direction or similar directions or postures or whatnot? And this is a minor rewrite of the rule to clarify and make it easier to understand for heralds to determine when it does and does not apply. And the last one is approval of an addition to the examples in PN 4B1, which is use of elements that appear to be titles. This is in the name rules to make it clearer that a section also applies to elements that appear to be forms of address, such as friar or widow. Even if we don't protect those, it clarifies when you can and cannot use that as part of a name.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the changes to SCA as presented? Director Lloyd?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the requested board actions as presented by the Society Lower Queen of Arms.
Seconded by Director Painter. Discussion or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so my policy interpretations, I guess I have 3 sections here. The first one is changes to SCA appendices. And I have 7 of these, and I'm just going to run through them because they're all grouped together. We added updates to our appendix on naming patterns to include naming practices in German, late period English, Irish, Gaelic, Russian, and Baltic, which makes it easier for submitters to be able to find patterns and names that they want, so they don't have to do a lot of extra research on their own. We revised an Appendix B to clarify what is a locative by name and how are they formed. So we added that information in there. Appendix C is regional naming groups and mixes. We added in Indian subcontinent naming groups because there's a lot of different languages in India, and so we wanted to make that clear as we expand into non-European languages a lot more. Appendix E is currently registrable designators for non-personal name submissions. This is like household designators, awards, things like that. So we added references to explain what kind of designators we allow, company of, fellowship of, etc. When are those appropriate for what type of thing you're trying to make? We simplified the Appendix H, low contrast, complex lines of division. Only Armory heralds care about this. Updated Armory Appendix J, which is documented and forbidden arrangements of charge groups on Armory, which is documenting the period patterns that we see. So we've added more period patterns to that. And Appendix M, which is some resources for conflict checking, we added a whole section on postures and orientation, and makes it easier again for heralds to figure out when can I do this thing and when can't I do this thing. And those are the changes to the SCA appendices that I have.
Is there a motion? Director Painter?
Director, I recommend that we accept these policy interpretations for SCA as presented by the Laurel Queen of Arms.
Seconded by Director Lloyd. Discussion or questions? All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
The next one is a change to our glossary of terms. This is, we added one definition to match a definition that we use elsewhere. The definition of overall.
Thank you. Director Painter?
I recommend we approve the policy interpretation to add the definition within the glossary of terms as recommended by Laurel Sovereign of Arms. Wait, wrong name. Harold.
It's a motion to uphold the policy interpretation of the glossary.
Yes. Did I not say it correctly? Sorry.
Close enough.
So I'm recommending a motion to uphold the policy interpretation to change the glossary of terms.
Is there a second? Seconded, Director Shepard. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
And lastly, my appendix, my administrative handbook appendix has sources that do not require photocopies. We've been adding URLs to articles, so that makes it easier for submitters to find them. And so we added another URL for a bunch of Juliana de Luna's name articles.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Director Painter?
Chair, I move that we accept the interpretation for the changes to the administrative handbook as outlined.
Thank you. Is there Director Lloyd is second? Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, I don't have any new policies. On the commendations, at the end of April, I had the VISPER Principal Herald of the West, Alazan de Fontaine, step down. And I wanted to thank her for her service, particularly during an extended tenure due to COVID. In her place is some gentleman you may know, Antonio Giordano de Cilia, who I'm sure will do great things in that position. I didn't put it in the board report, but I also have the Principal Herald of Drachenwald step down, I believe, this weekend, and that was Nicholas de Este, and he's been replaced, succeeded by Memorantia van der Linde, who again will do a fantastic job. Over the past several months, I've been told about a large number of heralds and scribes who've been elevated to the peerage, and I just wanted to go ahead and call out a bunch of names because they have all done a lot of work during the pandemic, and it's nice to see people's long-term work being recognized. For the Order of the Pelican, we have Maria Kargashina, Sarah the Brave, Katerina Geese, Dagra Sterna, and Michael Leyland Sinclair, all from Antir. Miriam Bat-Shimeon from Lokak, and Ethelwulf Munich from the Outlands, which, as I wrote this article, he hadn't yet accepted, had been elevated, but he had been offered the writ. For the Order of the Laurel, we have Etan Moira McNessa and Alicia Dubois from Antir, Malcolm Alderson from Artemisia, and Ariana Virch Gwynlingen from Caid. And I'm sure that I have missed others, but those are the ones that I was told about. Last month, the Principal Herald for Onstiora, Elena Wythe, gave Reese Ap Tudor the rank of Herald Extraordinary. This is a thing that heralds do, which lets him register a personal heraldic title. He has done a ton of work for the Kingdom of Onstiora, including writing and maintaining the Kingdom's OP software, but he's also my webmaster for the Heraldry website and does a whole bunch of behind-the-scenes dirty work of producing the monthly letters of acceptances of return. So this was our biggest honor because we could bestow upon him. General status report. Finally, activity is really starting to pick up with more events happening, which makes everybody happy. The number of kingdoms that are now accepting electronic payment for heraldic submissions is slowly starting to increase. I have heard some rumblings from heralds about kingdom exchequers that are not really on board yet, but I know that they have lots to do, and hopefully we can get in the next 6 months or so, we can get stuff going a little bit more smoothly there. We are working on new heraldic submission forms, which will hopefully start rolling out before the end of the year. One of my main concerns of these forms is we're going to remove personal information that we do not need to collect, and we in fact have not collected for some time, but the boxes are still on the forms. Such as submitter gender and birth date. We don't need this information. We don't want this information. We should not have this information. So that's one of the things that we will be taking off the forms. And we're also redoing the name form in particular to be easier for submitters to fill out without having to have a herald explain what all these boxes mean. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. On the publishable summary, this year's Known World Heraldic and Symposium was this weekend. I came to it directly from there. It was virtual again. It was hosted by the Principality of Vindheim and the Kingdom of Onstiora. And we had classes running the clock. I counted and we had over 60 hours worth of classes for the whole weekend. And it was quite well attended. And I wanted to thank the event stewards, Anita Montgomery and Brian William, and all the volunteers that helped them run this event. Known World 2023 next June, I announced today, will be hosted by Northshield, and cross your fingers, it'll be in person. It will be in the barony of Care Antworth Mar, I believe is the right word, how you pronounce it, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we're all looking forward to that and hope it goes off quite well. That is pretty much it. Everybody reported on time, which is fantastic. And I don't have any foreseeable travel, but it's actually doable now. So
Excellent. Thank you very much. The board accepts your report by consensus. Society Marshal, Officer Dubois.
Hello. Good afternoon. Let's see, to start off, we've got requested board actions. Been testing, the Society Archery Marshal's been testing the replacement for the Baldar blunt. It's been approved after, I think, 2 years of testing because of COVID. Let's see, combat archery rules have been updated. Testing has concluded on the star blunts, and they're approved by the Deputy Society Marshal of Archery. Request to change the Marshal Handbook, page 23, section 7G51. Currently reads that the Baldar, Fathead, and Fat 2 only are allowed as commercial blunts, and that is adding the new star blunt in there as well. So we sent a updated Marshal's Handbook with that in it too. That's should have been redlined.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Director Regner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we accept the handbook revision as presented by the Society Marshal.
Seconded by Director Degerstrom. Discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, good. Thank you. We've got policy interpretation, and I'm going to attempt to sum this up a little shorter than what's written here. But basically, it's the handbook states that no gaps in the faceplate currently can be greater than a 1-inch gap. A lot of the newer helmets that are coming out have slatted plates in the back and on the side, and larger than 1-inch gaps around the rest of the helmet. Got into a discussion with several marshals and also spoke to all the Kingdom Arm marshals. The thought was to cover them with leather or chain or tape or something like that, none of which are approved helmet construction materials out there. So we're still trying to figure out the how the wording should look, but my policy interpretation is that no gap in the helmet should be larger than allow 1-inch dial in, including the back of an helmet and sides as well. So, and in the case of, like a bar grill getting bent out of shape or something in the past, we've allowed people to, build up that bar grill with something like tape or some other material, cording to close that gap. But, I've let them know that's a temporary solution, not a permanent fix to a helmet. So that's that first part of the policy interpretation piece. And there was also a policy interpretation on clarification was requested on regarding whether or not a person can be an authorized warranted youth marshal but not have a background check. The interpretation determined that the answer is no. You can't be an authorized youth combat marshal without getting a background check. However, other adults can help marshal. They just can't be authorized warranted marshals without that background check. So.
Okay, I'd like to first deal with each policy interpretation separately. So if we can go back to number 1 first, just so that I understand correctly what you are asking. You are asking us to uphold the policy interpretation that helms may not have more than a 1-inch gap.
That's correct. Currently, the wording is just for the faceplate, but a lot of newer helmets are being built with slats or holes in the back to allow airflow that are larger than 1-inch gaps.
So no part of a helmet may have more than a 1-inch gap.
That's correct. And non-approved, and you can't use non-approved materials, construction materials, to cover that gap. So you've got a 2-inch gap on the back of your helmet. You can't take something that's a non-approved helmet material, such as leather or chain or something like that, to cover that gap.
I have a quick question here.
1 second.
Yep.
So again, just so that I make sure that I'm clear, what you're asking us to uphold is that no part of a helm may have more than a 1-inch gap, and helms may not use unapproved materials in its construction.
To cover those gaps.
To cover the gaps.
Yep.
Cover gaps. So let me just read that again. No part of a helm may have more than a 1-inch gap, and those gaps may not be covered by unapproved materials.
Yes. Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Okay. First, Director Lloyd.
Yes, quick question here. You mentioned that covering gap as a temporary measure. Is there a time frame on temporary? I just I marshal way too much, and so that was an immediate thing. Like
I got it. There's a million people looking to pick this apart. The other part should be in here that the only hole that should be bigger than 1 inch is the one you put your head in, which I would have thought would have gone without stating. But yeah, typically it's just for that event. Like if a bar gets bent at that event, you can temporarily fix it. It should be fixed with a permanent fix by the next event. You know, if you've got somebody showing up event after event with the same fix in place, the marshal should handle that.
Okay, thank you.
Director-elect Falcon.
I believe Director Regner was in front of me.
Rusty got it.
Yeah.
In that case, considering that the specific wording under consideration doesn't include the explanatory text you just used, would it be correct for me to say, based on your earlier discussion, that a 1-inch gap would be defined as allowing a 1-inch dowel to be admitted?
Yes, that's correct. A 1-inch dowel. Yep.
Okay.
President Fulton.
I believe Director Shepard had his hand up. Okay, well, thank you, Shep. So, Ray, what you're describing right now to explain what you've made this decision on will be reflected soon in a revision to the Fighter's Handbook to be better describe this, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We're still looking on a wording that fits all the different criteria that we needed for. Like I said, one of the things that came out is, as soon as we're like, hey, you can't put a 1-inch dowel in any part of the helmet, they're like, well, what about where you stick your head in there? So I'm like, fair enough. So we're just trying to make sure that this is, it's wording that all the kingdoms can kind of be behind as well, and are okay with, and making sure we're not missing any pieces. So yeah, we'll submit a proper wording with the next revision of the handbook. Currently, we're just trying to do a policy interpretation.
All right.
Director Shepard.
Ray, I'm not piling on this, I promise. I'm just trying to make sure with PINZIC coming up that going, if I have an issue, if someone has an issue on day 1 of fighting at PINZIC, they can go the rest of that event with, with their, a piece of duct tape stuck on their face because their bar grill was bent halfway down, or do they have to bang that out at the next, before the next day? I'm not trying to be a pain, Ray.
The problem is that someplace like PINZIC, people are not going to have an armoring toolkit necessarily to be able to bend that back. So if there's a temporary measure that's put in place for an event, I would say you could probably get through the event with that temporary measure. But that's very much a case-by-case basis. I mean, if somebody knocks a chunk off your helmet and you got a 4-inch gap over there, obviously it's going to need to be done with some more than duct tape.
President Fulton.
Thank you. So just so everybody knows, when corpora changes or document changes, kingdoms are given leeway before they have to enforce this stringently. If we made a rule here in corpora, PINZIC, technically the Kingdom of Ethelmark would have 60 days to implement it. may I suggest, Society Marshal Ray, that you, before full implementation, perhaps you wait till after PNZIC and you get a better description so that everybody can do it, because the event is literally coming this week and we do not want confusion. So can you tell everybody that implementation can be done after PNZIC when everything can be described better to fulfill what everybody needs to do? Because this could cause some bit of chaos.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Typically, there's for any new handbook, there's a certain amount of time that's given to allow them to implement those rules in their own team.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Director Lloyd.
I motion that we accept the policy interpretations along with the discussion of the society handbook.
Is there a second, Director Degerstrom? Any discussion or questions?
Thank you, Society Marshal, for accepting all of our questions.
No problem.
Okay, just for procedure, I just want to make sure, that our Executive Assistant, Officer Luther Fulton, you have clear language for what you need for the minutes? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, the second policy interpretation, Director Regner.
So I've read the currently available Youth Marshal Handbook, and I don't think that this actually counts as a policy interpretation, but I'm happy to hear people chat about it. But you're just saying, yep, what the handbook says is true. You have to be authorized. In order to be authorized, you have to have a background check.
Pretty much.
I'm not letting you not follow the handbook. So I would, unless anybody has a problem, I would invite you to withdraw that interpretation. I appreciate you bringing it before the board because it's obviously been something you've been asked, but I don't think it actually needs board action today. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. Sorry, it's my first time using this policy interpretation section. So.
Oh no, you're fine.
Okay, so Officer Dubois, you want to withdraw your second request?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Go right ahead.
New policies. There are no new policies. Now we get to commendations. Oh yeah. Society Marshal would like to thank these people. God dang, I should have printed backwards.
I'm not wearing my glasses. I can't read that. Say it out loud.
That is amazing.
Oil. Okay.
For anyone in the audience who does not know, the lovely Ray has a hard time with Scadian names. And so I love that you printed that out to do them justice.
I will try yet again, but I was trying to be prepared this time. Sorry, Jennifer, I thought I had this, and apparently I don't. So thanks for the offer.
Extremely prepared. People don't usually print stuff out like that. Please continue.
So I'd like to thank the Society Marshal, William of Effingham, and Angel de Svigny, the Kingdom Marshal of Lowcock, for their work on the project to bring the Society Handbook into a wiki format. Heartfelt thanks go out to John Fulton. I have to pronounce your name, but apparently you're in there. And Liz for putting up with me and my hundreds of questions I bounce off them all the time, of day and night. And finally, as always, I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Countess Muriel, my special projects deputy, for her support and assistance with keeping this office going smoothly. Here you go, honey. Yeah. For those that don't know, Kingdom of Lowcock has taken the Marshal's Handbook in its entirety and posted it on the wiki format, but they've also extrapolated the data out of it and kind of go through and answer questions and stuff that have been brought up and give clarification within it a little bit better, their policy interpretations and stuff in there as well. So if you ever get a chance, go look at it. We're looking at taking that and potentially moving the Society Marshal's Handbook into that format. The DSM for Armor Combat states that the KM of Locock, Mistress Angel Miri de Savigny, is to be strongly commended for her long and tireless work on the Media Wiki version of the handbook and for all martial disciplines. Her work will allow the SCA to simplify and better track handbook changes and create a much more user-friendly format. She has been instrumental in developing and testing the format. So yeah, the other thing that they do in their wiki is they track all the changes, so you can go back and look at past revisions of the handbook, which is nice, kind of a revision control. So I've found that as changes have happened over the years with the handbook, unless Leslie has kept or somebody has kept a copy of it out there on the on y'all's share file, then it's just gone. Nobody, has a copy to refer back to unless they happen to copy it all. So revision control has been kind of one of the biggest complaints. Nobody knows what it used to be or what's actually changed when a new one comes out. So we're trying to make sure that everybody has that information. The Deputy Society Marshal for Armored Combat with Rebated Steel would like to commend Doug Stevens. Got that name right down. And the Deputy Society Marshal for Combat Archery commends Countess Brenna for well-run Gulf Wars. It was an excellent return to large wars. The Deputy Society Marshal for Equestrian would like to commend Lady Giza von Giza Wellingstein, for her help with organizing the Teaching No More Martial and Training course. She has started this as an online Zoom course and has gathered momentum. I have made her one of my deputies to continue helping our community grow by teaching people the basic needs of becoming a marshal in the equestrian community. She also teaches these classes in person and helps to get people the experience they need to become a marshal. We really need more marshals in our program, as it has been difficult to do authorizations for people in outlying areas without a decent marshal base. Gisa has really stepped up to the task with flying colors. The Deputy Society Marshal for Rapier Combat would like to commend the following recently stepped down Kingdom Rapier Marshals, Brian Nomore for Lantia and Yoshi for Eldamir. Also, he offers a big thank you to Miriam DeHawk for helping with the computer side. The Deputy Society for Youth Combat, this is one that's going to get me, states that in North Shield, he has told the Luftwine Bernd Schmidt in Inner Sea is regularly holding the largest practice and Yorleaf Otterson has enlisted 5 armored fighters to get their sparring authorizations to recruit and train more youth combat fighters. Also, Reese Ap Ishmael, Ligand Odd, and Jack Flanders are constantly coming up with new ideas to rebuild youth combat in the kingdom. Finally, the West, Frederick Simbold is the new marshal of the Principality of Sinagua and also hard to get youth rapier, and is working hard to get youth rapier active there. And then publishable summary. At this time, 16 of 20 kingdoms and 6 of 7 society deputies have reported there seems to be a significantly larger amount of injuries this quarter, with things still opening back up. Many kingdoms are starting to pick back up at a fairly decent pace. However, some kingdoms are still struggling due to COVID. As most of us have been fairly inactive until recently due to COVID, keep in mind that while understandable and even appreciated, over enthusiasm on the field can result in unintended injuries. Be excellent to each other. And there is nothing planned for travel. I was going to Mega Penzig, but I'm having some surgery, so I will not be able to make it there. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. By consensus, the board accepts your report, and we wish you a speedy recovery from your surgery.
Thank you. Have fun at Penzig, all you that get to make it.
Next. Sorry, go ahead.
I was being silly. Benzik, what's that?
All right, next on our list is the Minister of Arts and Sciences, Officer Noble.
Good afternoon. Herein follows my second quarter for 2022 report for Kingdom or Society Minister of Arts and Sciences. No current requested board actions, no current policy interpretations, no current new policies. For commendations, I'd like to offer commendations to the following individual artisans and groups in some cases. First, I commend all Kingdom Arts and Sciences officers for their constant adjustments as we continue into the world of hybrid and in-person activities. Congratulations to Ethel Marks Arts and Sciences champions. Populist choice was Baron Sonori Skidi Bjarnason and the Honorable Lady Astrid Vikaskeg. His Majesty's choice was Lady Arielle de la Rose. Her Majesty's choice was Lady Avitoria Vidua. Congratulations to the winners of Antier's New Kingdom Arts and Sciences champions. Thora Yolfus Fari was the victor with a very impressive burqa brocaded tablet weaving and a research paper on the Silk Road trade routes. Second place went to Gareth Heyer, who presented 2 incredible John Dowland pieces incorporating lute playing, singing, and original English pronunciations. Gareth also received the Sable Bonnet, an Antier Award for the highest scoring entry. Commendations to Artemisia's New Kingdom Arts and Sciences champion, Angus Il-Ulfer. The reserve champion is Marguerite Delamontagne, and the novice champion Adels Ferguson. They also had a bunch of arts and sciences nobles who we also congratulate for various subject matter areas. Congratulations to Aidenvelt's new Arts and Sciences champion, Sir Cale Robertson, who was selected by the Crown to serve as their A&S champion for the remainder of their reign, and to my Lord Tailfer called Tails, who is named Aidenvelt's Bardic champion to serve until the end of the present reign. Commendations to Atlantia's new royal baker, Lady Isabel Henry, and to the new Poeta Atlantiae, Baron Paganus. Commendations also go to Nalia Alzarquaa for the excellent Persona Pentathlon entry, and to Temporia Atlantia winner for prehistory to 1000 AD, Lady Anuba Naprachin for her excellent entry of Birch Bark Hats. Commendations to all the kind gentles who offered their time and expertise to share classes during the University of Avakal's most recent session. Her Ladyship Lysia, who was of enormous help in running and organizing the University of Avakal. Extra special commendations to Saxa Amelia Africana for her time serving as Avakal's Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences. Congratulations to Lockheed's new Arts and Sciences champion, Lord Dietrich Lehrer, and to Mistress Catherine Kerr, who had the highest scoring entry of the year. Commendations to Mistress Clara van der Meys for coordinating the Rowanee Festival costume competition for several years, Master Hugh de Calais, Lord Elifer Lucassen, Lord Johann Huslinger, Lady Jonar de Calini, and Lady Louis Browse, who all contributed several hours over multiple days to running workshops and other activities at Rowanee Festival. To Lady Kathleen Burghardt, who has been doing an incredible job as Arts and Sciences Officer of St. Florian de Riviere, to Lady Laurie Furch Gwyn Win Win Ap Lewin Lin and Lord Gulikan Ua Tomalatig, who've been spearheading a new Games Guild and the revival of the Performers and Entertainers Guild, respectively. And to the Barony of Southern Guard's new Arts and Sciences champion, Lady Joanna de Biaro. Commendations to the Middle Kingdom Arts and Sciences Fair staff, Odette, Brigid, Francois, Sarai, and Aveline. They ran the fair smoothly and efficiently. Congratulations to Valya Abignova, Doc of Midrealm, for earning the highest score at Kingdom Arts and Sciences Fair for her Opus Cyprense fabric embroidery. Commendations to Domine Bernice Clavina for her time serving as Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences in North Shield. Commendations to Lady Liliana Isabella Aroldi de la Edra of the Outlands, who has been organizing 9 months of Build Your Wardrobe classes to help people make clothing. She credits Alexandria Orchestras for helping her develop the patterns. Commendations to Lydia Svala Thormsdor for her exceptional service as Arts and Sciences Officer for the Barony of Wyvernwood and Trimaris during the pandemic. Congratulations to Sir Brian of Bellatrix and Mistress Gisela Elgdottir, who tied for Wreath of Athena Arts and Sciences competition. Commendations to Sir Brian of Bellatrix, who made the replacement coronets for Crown Prince and Princess of the West on very short notice. They're exceptionally beautiful. My publishable summary. The Society for Creative Anachronism continues to fulfill its mission to research and recreate the arts and skills of the pre-17th century world. This quarter has seen a return to more in-person activities, including arts and sciences classes, competitions, and displays at Golf Wars, Rhone Festival, and Kingdom Arts and Sciences fairs. Online and hybrid arts and sciences activities, including universities, collegia, competitions, Zoom gatherings, classes, and workshops have continued. The overall number of online events continues to be reduced slightly, but they do continue to be a way in which the arts and sciences are being explored and shared, even as in-person events are rapidly picking back up. Kingdom and local officers are successfully continuing to adjust and adapt to the changing ways in which we do arts and sciences activities, including working toward a regular hybrid online and in-person activities and displays, and returning to more in-person events. The Society Minister for Arts and Sciences has an official Facebook presence located at facebook.com/Society Minister Arts and Sciences. This page allows members to receive information about arts and sciences activities throughout the known world and encourages them to share their own projects, promote local artisans, and connect with others who share their interests. As the Society officer, I'm continuing outreach to Kingdom officers to help encourage and support officers from Kingdom level all the way through branch officers, including the occasional question from the mundane world. I continue to maintain an email response time to warranted officers of no more than 48 hours, except for when I'm away at in-person events, which may be slightly later. For this quarter, we have no out-of-kingdom travel, and this concludes my report for the second quarter of 2022.
I did a thing again. Thank you very much, and the board accepts your report by consensus. All right. Thank you very much to all of our officers for presenting your reports and providing us with updates on what's been happening throughout the society in this last quarter. And we'll turn now to standing committees. We have a report from the Peerage Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is from Greg Rayner, the the chair of the Peerage Committee. To the Board of Directors, does the chairperson of the Peerage Committee send greetings? Herein lies the report for the Committee on Peerage for the second quarter of 2022. Requested board actions. Please review the timeline provided by the committee. And the Peerage Committee website needs to be updated to reflect membership. I don't think that last one needs a action by the board. I can just ask that of Nick when he steps up. Policy interpretations, none. New policies, none. Commendations, none. General status report. While the committee has been waiting for the board to review the prepared report changes, a timeline of the committee's history has been prepared to inform the directors of work already prepared and to give an overview of the work the committee has done. Travel, none. Publishable summary. The committee has delivered a timeline of the committee's history, including work done and waiting to be reviewed by the board.
Okay, do we want to have any discussion on this right now? Or any questions for the Peerage Committee? All right, seeing none, then we will move forward. There's the Census Committee. We have no report. And now I turn it over to our executive assistant, Ms. Luther Fulton for the executive session portion.
Okay. Ryan Davidson, by consensus, this item is returned to the Society Seneschal for additional work. Kevin Dillard, Director Natalie Dagerstrom recused herself from discussion of or voting on this matter. Motion by Ross Rogner to revoke the membership of and deny participation to Kevin Dillard, effective immediately. Second by Jennifer Kroffmall. Opposed, none. Recused, Natalie Dagerstrom. Motion carried. Jay Wolford, by consensus, this item is returned to the Society Seneschal for additional work. Liz Haw Anderson, by consensus, no action was taken. Jennifer Bigham May, by consensus, no action was taken. Report on the Trimaris and Gulf Wars rapier issues. The report of the Society Seneschal was accepted as presented. By consensus, this matter was returned to the Society Seneschal for additional work. Discussion on active shooter Alice protocols. The report of the president was accepted as presented. Society Seneschal discussion of confidential matters. The report of the Society Seneschal was accepted as presented. Society web minister candidates, by consensus, it was determined that this matter falls within the purview of the manager of information technology. Legal updates by the president. The report of the president was accepted as presented. DEI job description, by consensus, no action was taken. Todd Griffin. Motion by Aaron Lloyd to rescind the motion of June 14th, 2022, denying the appeal of Todd Griffin. Second by Jennifer Kroffmall. Opposed, none. Chair exercised his option to vote, did so in favor of the motion. Motion carried. April 24th, 2022. Oh, excuse me, this should say July 24th, 2022, subsidiaries action by written consent. All actions for the subsidiaries of the Society for Creative Anachronism Incorporated are accepted by consensus. Director resignation, by consensus, no action was taken. Director appointment, by consensus, no action was taken. Director selection, seat A, by consensus, no action was taken. Chair assignment, motion by Natalie Dagerstrom to appoint Ross Rogner as chair for the board of directors for the Society for Creative Anachronism, effective at the close of the July 24th, 2022 quarterly meeting. Second by Aaron Lloyd. Opposed, none. Motion carried. Vice chair assignment, by consensus, no action was taken. Ombudsman assignments. Chair Ross Rogner. Ombudsman 4, President Society Seneschal, Corporate Office, Executive Assistant, Financial Officers, Financial Committee, Board Recruiting, Census Committee. Vice Chair Doug Bainter, Ombudsman for Harold's East, Caid West. Director Natalie Dagerstrom, Ombudsman for Atlantia, Meridies, Middle Marshall. Director Jennifer Kroffmall, Ombudsman for Calentier, North Shield, Outlands, Communications Committee, and Information Technology. Can I ask a question here? That was not officially changed yet, was it?
That's correct.
Okay. Director Aaron Lloyd, Ombudsman for Ethelmark, Avacall, Drachenwald, Eldemir, Locock, DEI. Director Dale Von Frederick. Ombudsman for Artemisia, Aidendale, A&S Publications, including TICA and Chronicler. Director KT Shepard, Ombudsman for Ontario, Stiora, Glenavon, Trimaris, and the Peerage Committee. And that closes your executive session.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the officers and the directors for your hard work as well, and for sitting through another weekend of doing the society's work and keeping the dream alive and progressing into the future. I also want to take a moment of personal privilege to thank you all for the trust that you had in me to make me, to elect me as chair. And I hope that I, in some way, was able to fulfill that trust. And I look forward to turning the gavel over to Director Regner. I'll see you in about 6 months with gray hair. That being said, is there a motion? Director Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we blow up the taco stand. Adjourn the Board of Directors meeting for July 24th, 2022.
Seconded by Director Degerstrom. All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, look at that. We have 4 opposed. We'll keep the meeting open.
No tricks.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Have a good day.